successful stories over the weekend, whether you're a Utah or a BYU fan. So we'll get into some college football. On the show today, Utah State, 3 missed field goals, man. Had a chance to get bowl eligible against UNLV. Now they're going to have to beat either Fresno or Boise to get to that 6th win, year 1 under Bronco Mendenhall. So fun weekend of college football. Historic comeback down at College Station by Texas A&M. They were dead in the water, man. I was watching that game. That was wild. Dead in the water, down 30-3, but they came back and did a good job to make sure that they stayed clean over South Carolina, 31-3, and nothing has gone right for South Carolina all year. As I referenced, Oklahoma goes to Tuscaloosa, and in a defensive dogfight, Bama lost the turnover margin by 3, and Oklahoma only won by 2. Texas was undressed by Georgia. A lot of people believe Georgia's now the team that's best fit to take on Ohio State as they're kind of clicking and sinking in November, and that's what you want to do. Texas Tech, no problem against UCF. In the Lane Kiffin Bowl, Ole Miss actually needed a late rally to beat Florida. Notre Dame got the win on the road at Pitt. Notre Dame is kind of an interesting team to consider. 2 losses at the beginning of the season, one to Miami and one to A&M. 2 good teams, and they've run off 8 straight wins since. But both BYU and Utah have a better strength of record, better strength of schedule than Notre Dame. USC got a big win at home against Iowa, answering a lot of questions there. We talked about the ACC potentially being shut out of the CFP. We can probably put that to bed as Duke was stomped by Virginia at home. So we'll go over some of these matchups. A big upset is Navy beat South Florida. So some of these G5 programs are kind of falling by the wayside. And as I referenced, Arizona took care of Cincinnati. So get to all the college football storylines, of course, on the show today, as we do every Monday. In the world of pro football, your Week 12 of the NFL will come to a conclusion tonight, and we will have Monday Night Football on the program after we say goodnight at Allegiant Stadium, the Dallas Cowboys and the Vegas Raiders. So there you go. The New York Jets have a new starting quarterback because they're a joke of an organization. Sunday Night Football, the Eagles beat the Lions in a dogfight. The Denver Broncos have won, I believe it's 8 straight football games now. And the Kansas City Chiefs are in trouble. They're 1-4 away from home. So an interesting, entertaining Sunday of pro football. We'll get into some NFL storylines. The Utah Jazz beat the Chicago Bulls in double overtime. Larry Markkinen is having himself an all-star season. Did you forget how good Larry was as a result of the way the Jazz utilized him a year ago? Jazz have won 2 of 3 now, 5-8. And do not mess around and get out of the bottom 8, but we'll talk about it as Markkinen was great. Keontae George with the game-winning shot with 0.8 seconds left in the second overtime, and the Jazz took care of the Bulls. They're going to be on the road coming up against the Los Angeles Lakers tomorrow night, 8:30 Mountain Time. The Utah Mammoth have had an up-and-down season. They're on the road at Anaheim. They have not been great on the road so far this year, but you do get a little hockey on your television this evening if you're looking for a little bit of local flavor to watch if the Monday Night Football game is not your style. A lot of storylines. What's the status of Devin Dampier? Young Bert Ficklin once again answered the bell when called upon over the weekend. Bear Bachmeier leads the country in games with a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown. That's 7 games now for Bear. And both BYU and Utah absolutely roll. All right, good guest list today. Right out of the gates, former Ute quarterback Scott Mitchell. And Scott has joined us pretty much every single Monday throughout the course of the college football season. Former Ute Stevenson Sylvester rolls by. As we do Mondays during the college football season, we'll bring back Coach Witt's comments from earlier today. Interesting subplot of Saturday's game against K-State. Is this the final home game for Kyle, for Coach Witt? Is this it? A lot of people more plugged in than I am believe the answer to that is yes. And if it is, what sort of gravitas does that add to this matchup as K-State rolls into town? We're going to get into the potential path to a CFP for Utah. For BYU, the equation is very simple on the show today. We'll see what Scott has to say about it. Sly stops by, Coach Witt's comments. Tony Parks, the voice of the Bees, longtime radio personality in the market, will join us during the 4 o'clock hour today. Then we'll launch into the 5 o'clock hour of the program. Hope you had a great weekend. Happy Monday to you. Michael Penix Jr. is out for the season. A lot of injury news as far as quarterbacks go in pro football. As I referenced, Justin Fields to the bench. Tyrod Taylor will start against the Ravens, the team that originally drafted him. So some interesting stuff with Scott Mitchell today, Stevenson Sylvester, Coach Witt, Tony Parks, me, Spence Checketts. Hello, how are you? Happy Monday. And that guy, Porter Larson, who's the host of our Utah pregame coverage.
Yo.
So Devin, a little bit banged up. And every time they've called Bird's number this year, man, that kid has really stepped up. And, got a little dicey there to start the second half, one-score game, and then they just ran all over him like we thought that they would do. But every time Bird has had his number called, he has answered the bell, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's electric. He's got a open field, just playmaking ability that you only see every once in a while, right? And, you saw it on that long run, the first one, where he had that little stutter step in full stride while running full speed and then just blew the corner out of the water with the angle the corner had. So you see the ceiling that Bert Ficklin can provide. You see the obvious, as you mentioned, struggles that Devin is having physically, and it can very much make you want to talk about a quarterback conversation. But at this point in the season, I think it's okay to just have quarterback depth and not make it anything more than that. And Utah's handling it pretty well. They're using each guy to their strength, and they're doing so to the tune of, 40-plus points a game. Good enough right now for third in Utah football history. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Keep using that kid when you can, where you can, and keep using the versatile roster you have to your advantage. It's been fun to watch.
Yeah, and they're answering every question the way that you thought that they would post-game when posed with a question whether or not there is some sort of quarterback controversy. But it does appear Devin's a little bit banged up. So we'll see what that means for Saturday's game at K-State. Against K-State here in Salt Lake. All right, our first guest today will be Scott Mitchell, former quarterback at the U, played pro football for a long time. I always appreciate Scott's time. But before Scott stops by, courtesy of our good friends and your good friends at Prize Picks, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
You guys already know that Prize Picks is the best place to win cash on football. Of course, pro football has handful of weeks left. We are moving into that mid-November, late November, where both college and pro football are moving into the final portion of their season, which is pretty wild. But Prize Picks is also the best place to win cash on the Jazz or the Lakers or the Warriors or the Knicks, whoever your favorite team is. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can win up to 2,000 times your cash. Prize Picks now offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. If you want to pick more on Steph Curry's points, 3-pointers, and assists, you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. You also can follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app, copy their lineups in one click, whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just someone whose picks you like. Hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700. To get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is always good to be right. All right, so an entertaining weekend in the world of college football now behind us. For kind of the tone and tenor and the rhythm of this show, usually Monday, Tuesday, we kind of exist in the looking back on what happened before we kind of adjust our coverage to looking ahead. As I referenced, though, an interesting subplot for Saturday's home finale for Utah football, senior night/afternoon. Love that 2 o'clock kick time on a Tuesday. Our pregame coverage for Utah, Kansas State will come your way at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Porter will have that for you with the pregame stuff before Bill, Scott, and Slide take over. And about 10 hours of game day coverage coming up on Saturday. But for Utah, the task remains the same. And all the boxes were checked over the weekend in what was a very dominant performance on the road against a very up-and-down Baylor team, to be fair. And it's kind of interesting to consider the way we discussed this game coming up on Friday. Most of the dynamics just kind of manifested to be what most people thought would turn out as far as the not just the outcome, but the process in the way Utah was able to handle Baylor. Now, defensively, there were some holes. And, that's kind of the dirty little secret at times with Utah's defense. Typically, the most dominant portion of a Kyle Whittingham, coach football team. And you're going to hear from Coach Wick coming up in about, we'll call that an hour and 15 minutes from now. Some holes defensively, some missed tackles, but this is simply an offense that right now is ticking to the tune of anything that we've seen here as far as elite offensive attack, play calling, execution in a number of years. I don't know that I would say like, hey, is this the best offense since 2004, that was historic. How good is this football team? the kind of permeating fear right now in this fan base is there's a chance that this is as good of a Utah football team that we've seen in a number of different years, and it might not matter, and that's unfortunate. And what do I mean by that? Well, ultimately, and it's kind of funny what we do here in this business, like, did the BYU loss wake this team up to the point where they're now averaging 51 points over the course of the past 3 games and 3 straight just dominant performances, which for all intents and purposes did feel like they were in hand early on. Now, Baylor came out and made it a 1-possession game after halftime. But then once it was pretty clear that Devin was a bit banged up, Bird gets his number called. And every time that kid has had his number called, something, as Porter put it earlier, electric happens. I don't know what the future holds at that position. As we referenced to kind of start the show, when they've been asked about it, they've answered it exactly how you would expect. Bird and Devin appear to be very good friends. So I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, quarterback controversy or what does next year look like? Right now, like, if Devin is a little bit banged up, it's just a benefit to have that kid behind him. Because what we learned over the past couple of years with Cameron's inability to stay upright, Utah's contingency plan at quarterback, should the starter go down, was just not close to good enough over the past couple of years. So this is only a benefit, and it's only a blessing, because when things got just a little bit dicey, and again, Utah starts fast, and then Baylor is able to come back a little bit in the second. It wasn't necessarily as over as the Colorado game felt, or even the Cincinnati game felt, but you could tell that there was a mismatch physically. And the Baylor Bears came in to this game with the 3rd worst defensive grade against the rush in the Big 12, and Utah comes into this game as the best rushing team in the country, and best rushing team in the conference, and the 2nd best rushing team in the country, just to Navy, and all they do is run the football. So that one dynamic made it feel like a little bit of a mismatch, and Utah should be able to handle Baylor. Vegas told us the spread was big at 10.5. Most of the previews that we talked about on the show, the guests that we had on the show, indicated that Utah would be able to go down to Waco and get this done. But the fact that they did, and yes, style points for this team matter more than most, because the cruel reality is, as I referenced, this team being so good and playing their best football in November. I referenced that with Florida earlier, right? Georgia earlier. You want to be playing your best football in November if you're a college football team. Georgia appears to be doing that right now. Utah appears to be doing that right now. And there's a good chance they will not have the opportunity to showcase this on a national stage. Is this Utah football team on par with the Pac-12 championship teams, the Rose Bowl teams? Are they on par on paper with the talent that we always talk about of 2019? The reality is they might be, right? And certainly as they've turned it on and have looked so dynamic offensively over the past 3 weeks, it is hard to exist in a space that might include the inability to see them showcase this in a college football playoff format or in a Big 12 championship. Because unfortunately, the 2 losses look like they're going to most likely keep Utah certainly out of the Big 12 championship game. There is a scenario on the table, and our friends at ESPN have their college football playoff predictor, right, that we use every week. They have Utah as a 39% chance of making it into the CFP. And if Utah is able to beat K-State, and they're a healthy favorite, and handle Kansas, which they should, there still is an outside chance that this team could potentially make the college football playoff, right? 39% chance is what they're saying right now Utah has to make the postseason. 39% chance. BYU with a 37% chance. And if you play this forward, so what this simulator allows you to do is you pick the K-State-Utah game, you pick the Utah-Kansas game, and then after you pick Utah to win those 2 games, the third portion of the exercise is, will Utah win its conference championship game? Well, I am here to say the same thing I said a week ago, which is I don't think Utah is going to make it to the Big 12 championship game. We'll go over that in a minute. So the third option is they don't make the game, okay? So what the predictor is telling us, that if Utah wins against K-State, if they win against Kansas and don't make the Big 12 championship game, right now they have a 50% chance of making the playoffs. Texas Tech would get in as the automatic qualifier, and BYU would be left out as a result of losing in the Big 12 championship game. And that is the scenario we've talked about that will really permeate down in Provo to the point where they're going to be really upset if they have the head-to-head over Utah and they don't make it into the CFP, even if they make it to Arlington. But BYU answered a lot of questions over the weekend because while I'll say that at halftime I had a lot of confidence that Utah was going to be fine, there were still a few moments, right, when Baylor pulls it back with a field goal where it's like, okay, it's an 8-point game. How are they going to respond? The BYU-TCU game was over like at the whistle. And that was a game that by every measurable metric, whether it was the Vegas line, whether it was the advanced metrics, whether it was the prediction models, a lot of them had BYU winning, but it was like 31-28 or 28-27. That was a thumping. It was over quick, 44-13. Josh Hoover completed 10 passes. It was a season low for TCU in points scored and the worst passing grade from PFF Josh Hoover has had all year long. TCU could not do anything. TCU came into that game as the second best rushing defense in the Big 12. And in the first half, BYU did whatever they wanted to do. They had 21 first downs in the first half. They scored on their first 7 possessions. They haven't done that since 2009. And in the second half, the rushing attack slowed a little bit, but that was never even a contest. And I said it on Friday, and I believe this to be true. For a Ute fan, now that Cincinnati has suffered their second loss, your only hope to make it to Arlington is Cincinnati beats BYU. But I view that as a really bad matchup for Cincinnati. Like, I thought TCU down in Provo had a better chance of making this interesting than I believe Cincinnati does coming up on Saturday, even though it's a home game for the Bearcats. Because BYU, well, they want to play a lot like Utah. You know, Kalani, all those guys cut their teeth under Witt. And we all saw what happened as far as Cincinnati and their inability to stop the run up here in Salt Lake. I think BYU is going to Cincinnati. I think they're going to run all over them. So BYU's path is still very clear. I thought that was a statement win from BYU for a lot of people that still have a lot of questions about just how good they are. And again, the only the only rankings that matter are the college football playoff rankings that we're going to see tomorrow. The AP, okay, whatever. So if we move over to BYU with the ESPN simulator, we pick BYU to beat Cincinnati. We pick BYU to beat UCF. And then question 3, will BYU win its conference championship game? And we say, no, they lose to Tech. Their percentage chance of making it to the playoffs is 30%. So there is this weird path based on this formula the committee is using where BYU wins their final 2, Utah wins their final 2, BYU goes to the Big 12 championship game, they lose to Tech, and Utah gets in as the second team out of the Big 12 with an at-large bid, and BYU's left out. So the simulator and the chances, according to ESPN, are actually better for Utah to make it into the CFP than it is for BYU, even if BYU advances to the conference championship game. I know that doesn't land well with our friends down south. I'm just telling you what the numbers say. But both teams look really good. It was a fun college football weekend. We'll continue the conversation after a quick break with Scott Mitchell, former Utah quarterback, as our first guest on a Monday. Great to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. Does beef jerky go bad? Like, does beef
Eventually.
jerky? Does it really?
Eventually.
Are you sure? Because this is like your area here.
Yeah, but like there are conditions you can keep it. You can keep it good for a good long while.
Well, I was going to do a little grocery shopping today because I was out of snacks for work, and then I found a bag of beef jerky at like the bottom of a drawer. I'm like, wait a second. I think I bought this a couple months ago. Feel like I still have a little runway here.
In the bag, packaged, a couple months, you're totally fine.
Okay.
Might be a little dry, but you're good.
All right, well, I just downed like 3 pieces, so if I get sick in like an hour, I'll keep you up to date. But Scott Mitchell on a Monday afternoon. Hello, Scott. Happy Monday. How are you?
I just had some beef jerky myself, doing great. I think beef jerky last year, you'll be fine. You'll have no issues.
Did you ever have a pregame meal that you like had to have? Were you like superstitious that way?
Did I ever have a it never changed.
What was it, Scott? What was it?
So how the only way it changed was based on the time of the game. So if it was an early game, like a 1:00 kickoff, it was typically some scrambled eggs, not very much, no seasoning. Everything was super bland, and I had a baked potato because they would have, regardless of the game time, they have like New York strip steaks. They had spaghetti. They had all kinds of stuff. So it was eggs and a baked potato. If it was an early game, it was spaghetti with just, a hint of marinara sauce and the same baked potato. And the baked potato, the only thing I put on it was A1 sauce, A1 steak sauce. And I don't know why. And I know that was kind of spicy, and it never changed. My whole entire career never, ever changed, ever.
Just one follow-up. They had New York strip steak, and your choice was eggs and a baked potato?
Well, now before I started playing, it was a buffet. Like when I was backing up, it was like, yeah, shoot, I'd have food at halftime just to keep me in the game. And when I was with the Dolphins, we stayed at Coach Shula had a resort, and he had his original Don Shula steakhouse there, and so these New York strips were like nothing I'd ever had in my entire life, and they were just amazing. But yeah, so when you play, I got too nervous. I couldn't have food in my stomach. It would not be good.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, whatever Utah is eating pregame, see that? Called the segue, Scott.
Nice.
Certainly has been working. They're averaging 51 points on offense over the past 3 games. And as we previewed this game last week, it certainly did feel like Utah would be able to run the ball on the Baylor defense that under Dave Aranda, randomly enough, isn't very good against the rush, and that certainly manifested. But what were your main takeaways as Utah went to Waco and stomped Baylor 55-28?
Yeah, it certainly was. It was about big plays on both sides of the ball. Even for Baylor, they just they had big plays in the throwing game, but there was a pick six, and there was an interception that almost was led to a touchdown. There were just insanely explosive plays, Wayshawn and Bert Ficklin. But then the explosiveness in the passing game, which was very limited, was off of running, which I think is a good counter and good to see from Utah. And it wasn't something you had to do a lot of, but when it was timely. And so there was the one, they had the jumbo package in and really sold out to the run, and then just leaked it one guy out, and that was nice. And then those little kind of pop passes, running into the line, and I like that wrinkle, the creativity of it. But it was a game of big plays. But the one thing that I really got out of this game was how Devin Dampier, not healthy, is really dangerous in the pocket throwing the football. And it's like he knows he's not going to run. He knows he's limited in running because that's kind of his magic sauce, and that's what you saw early on in the season. Boy, if it wasn't there, it wasn't uncommon for him to scramble for 12, 15 yards on a third down, and he was really good at that. And when Utah dropped back to throw in this game, he sat in the pocket too long, and I really believe it's because he knew he can't run effectively, And that's when he gets in trouble because he's really, really trying to force throwing the football. It's hard for him to see to begin with. A lot of guys weren't really open in the pass game, but he was trying too hard, and so he was scrambling to throw, and he had a couple of sacks, which he never gets sacked. And I think that's the dangerous part of Devin right now is an unhealthy Dampier in the pocket throwing. It's good if he's out on the run and moving around, but he's a different player. He's a different mindset, and that's where you've seen the really bad interceptions this year have come from when he's just held on to the ball too long because he knows he can't run, and he's forcing the pass.
For the fourth time this year, Utah's offensive line picks up Big 12 Offensive Line of the Week honors, Scott. And in preparation for the game last week, I came across a stat that almost honestly made me, as the kids would say, LOL. That Utah right now, rushing the football, they're averaging, and with the Baylor game, it's up to 3.3 yards per carry before contact. So whether it's Devin or Bird or Wayshawn or Nakari or whoever, they're almost running for 3.5 yards before they're even touched. I mean, tell me what you continue to see from this offensive line that clearly appears to be the impetus that has allowed Utah to become this offensive juggernaut.
Well, one, it's these players are pretty good. I mean, they run the ball well. I mean, when Devin's healthy, he's an exceptional runner. Bird Ficklin, my goodness, you saw that last. And Wayshawn's really started to kind of get in a rhythm, and then you have Daniel Bray. But it's coming from a lot of different places. You can't dial into it as a defense. And, a lot of these teams, they play kind of this soft four across look, and then the safeties kind of creep up to the line and run support. And if they miss, it's out the door, and because there's no one back deep to help. And so because they're all so close to the line of scrimmage. And so these Utah offensive linemen, I mean, you talk about giving them the offensive line of the week, just give it to them for the year. Like these guys, they're just the best offensive line in the conference, maybe one of the best offensive lines in the country, and it's because they fit well. They get on guys, they stay on guys, they sustain blocks, and you do that, and your secondary, is in the wrong position. You're going to have those big games. You're going to have those untouched touchdowns. I think 2 or 3 of those big runs where no one even touched them at all, and it's just that combination of now you see me, now you don't. You don't know who's got the ball. You don't know who's going to get the ball, but all of them are super explosive when they get it, and it's very, very hard to defend.
So, of course, and we're going to hear from Coach Wick coming up, who addressed the media. It's interesting with Devin, Scott, because I want you to kind of walk us through this. I feel like it's really obvious to see when he's not right. Throughout the course of the year, over the first just few possessions of the Tech game, and I would say the second half of the BYU game and certain portions of the Baylor game, you're just watching like something's up. I don't know if it's the ankle. It's clear that he's banged up. Coach Witt acknowledged if it wasn't a bye week before, he probably would not have been out there. So how do you think we're going to see Coach Witt and Jason and Devin and Bird? How are they going to navigate their way through this? I mean, they're a healthy favorite against K-State, and they're going to be a healthy favorite against Kansas. But the issue, as you know as well as anybody, like if they beat K-State 14-10, it's not going to do anything. Like at this point, the 2 losses are going to be an anchor on them unless they continue to just overwhelm their final 2 opponents. So there's not just pressure to beat K-State. You got to beat them by like 3 touchdowns. So how do you think we're going to see this coaching staff navigate their way through the quarterback position?
Well, there have been 2 paths to the playoffs, and one was in that large. And a lot of things had to happen. One of those was Oklahoma needed to lose against Alabama, which I think everyone thought would happen, and it didn't. And a couple other people, Texas lost. That was helpful. And I think it makes it harder for Utah to get inside that 10 as an at-large. And the other path is to get into the conference championship, and you got to win it. And that's a real possibility. If BYU loses one more game, BYU loses to Cincinnati, actually. It's Cincinnati because Utah beat Cincinnati. It gives them a better winning percentage, and Utah with 2 losses would go ahead of BYU in the conference championship game. So that's a better option, but it's still hard. It's still a tough path. But if you are going to play in your conference championship game or you're going to go to the playoffs, I think it's better, and I kind of said it earlier, to play Bird Ficklin. You know he can play now. Like, it's not a question of, and you know he could be very productive. So give him a couple of games to get so much more confidence, so much more experience, and give Devin a chance to really heal whatever's ailing him. So now you go into, let's say you go into a conference championship, and instead of having a less experienced Bird Ficklin and a 75% Devin Dampier, now you got a guy who's no longer a freshman, a lot of experience in Bird Ficklin, and you got a healthy Devin Dampier. That's a formula that I think you can beat at Texas Tech, or certainly make a lot of noise in the college football playoffs. To me, it just makes it's a no-brainer in my brain, which isn't saying a lot because my brain is what it is. To start Bird these next couple of games, give Devin a rest, and then let the chips fall where they may as far as are you get in the. I mean, because there's a real possibility, but it's still a challenge to get in into the playoffs, and you're not going to be less explosive offensively with Bird in the game at all. And I don't think it's going to change. I mean, I think Utah is just going to win these last two games and do it decisively. But man, that puts you in a really nice position going into whatever playoffs or conference championship game you might be in.
Yeah, because it's interesting to consider. There's just so much at stake. Like, part of me would maybe err on the side of resting Devin if there was a trip to Arlington that was inevitable. But because there's not, you got to push your chips to the middle of the table. But let me be a little bit more reductive with what I was getting at, because I wanted to know, like, from your eye, as somebody who played quarterback, is it as apparent to you as it seems to me when Devin just doesn't look right?
Well, yeah, because it was hard in the beginning because I didn't know who he was. You know, I'd seen film of him, and so watching UCLA, I'm so darn excited watching that UCLA game. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to be a fun year. Like, this is going to be fun. This guy's amazing. This offense can be creative. They can and then I think he got injured in Wyoming, because there was a point in Wyoming, it's like, something's not right here. And then they came out against Texas Tech, and I thought it was, well, this guy folds in a big game, or, you know, the pressure's too much, or the game's too big for him, and all that stuff. It's like, no, he's injured. And then it started to make more sense. And so, yeah, every time he's not been 100%, it's easy. It's as easy to spot the moon coming over the horizon, you know, in the middle of the night or whatever. It's blatantly obvious, and it impacts the game in a bad way, as I was describing earlier with the throwing, because when he feels the pressure and he knows he can't run and he's got to stay in the pocket, his instinct tells him to run, but his injury tells him to stay there, and both of those are really bad, and that's when he makes bad decisions. But moving him out of the pocket to throw is limited too, because, you know, he's kind of limited in his movement. So, yeah, it's very clear when he is not 100%. And I'm sure they know it. I'm sure they know all. I'm sure they don't want to tell anyone what it is, because they don't, you know, they kind of want to keep it their little dirty secret and whatever. And I can't blame them for that. But it's very obvious that when he's not healthy.
Kind of an interesting subplot, Scott, for Saturday's game against K-State. Excuse me. It's a 2:00 kickoff. We love the early afternoon kicks. It is senior night/afternoon, so we do certainly want to all gather there for one last time to say goodbye to these guys who have given so much to the program. And look, we blink and these seasons almost end. This is our final time to hang out up at Rice-Eccles, which always is a bummer when it comes to an end. But there's also kind of this subplot of, is this the final home game for Coach Witt? And I just wonder what your thoughts are. Like, I honestly have no idea. I've never had any clue. Like, for the past 3 years, it seems like the media topic here is like, is Kyle stepping aside and is Morgan sliding over a seat? When is this going to go down? The unfortunate part is, and we can actually go over the exercise, who has really ever stepped aside the right way when every single box has checked? I mean, even the greats, like, I remember watching Michael Jordan play for the Wizards. I remember Patrick Ewing playing for the Orlando Magic. Hakeem Olajuwon was a Raptor. Brett Favre retired 17 different times. Maybe Brady went out the right way, but ultimately I think a lot of people feel like Peyton may have. But there are very few players or coaches that are able to check every box they want to check before they step aside. And nothing that happened last year or the year before did anything, I think, to change who Kyle Whittingham is as far as his impact on not just the football program, but the community. But if it's the final home game, shouldn't we do something? I mean, I know that, like, I chuckled at the thought of, like, Harlan walking into Witt's office and be like, hey, if this is it, do you want, like, can we honor you? Because I'm sure Kyle would be like, hey, I'm focused on the game. Please leave my office. But it's kind of this weird dynamic. Like, this man deserves something coaching his final game at Rice-Eccles, but I don't know that that's anything he would want, right?
Okay, so there's a lot there. First of all, like, Kyle's competitive. Like, he's a football. He doesn't know anything other than being a football coach. And as long as, like, there's any juice in your veins to do it, I think you're going to keep doing it, regardless of kind of what the grand exit looks like. And I think that's why you see so many players, as you've mentioned, go out when maybe they weren't at their best, or you know, very few go out the right ways because you can't get it out of your system. And I think that's the way with Kyle. And I think I would have said at the beginning of the year, yeah, absolutely, this is last year. But now he doesn't seem worn by the season. You know, we interview him, and you can just tell if he's worn out. He was worn out last year, but not this year. And I think there's some excitement. And I think there's some excitement about this team even moving forward. There's still a lot of good pieces on this defense next year. The offensive line will need to retool itself, but they got a lot of tools. I mean, those backups are, you know, they're. I'm not going to say some of them are as good as the starters because there's two guys there that are amazing, but they're really good. It could be another good, and you really have found some weapons offensively. So next year could be really exciting, and so I don't get a sense that he's lost it or he's just done. And I think with that, I think he's probably like, you know, I need to get it out of my system completely. I don't want to leave and go, I should have stayed. You know, I just rather have it that way. And I don't think it's the end right now. But, you know, the guy to me that's in the catbird seat is Morgan Scalley. Because it's like, hey, coach, you know, you coach a couple of years. I don't care. I'm getting paid a ton of money. I have my job. In fact, I have my dream job. So when you're done, you know, I don't care. And so Morgan's just, you know, and I'm sure he has a great relationship with Kyle. I'm sure he's very involved in a lot of the decisions and directions with the team. But you know, he's just, you know, it's a great thing to be the guy in waiting and know that you're in a good situation. Because I think that would be the one thing that might be a little awkward, you know, because are you going to leave already or not? And I don't get that sense from Morgan, and I don't think he should be that way. But you know, and then to your point about should we do something, I think Kyle would be like, look, I'm focused on the season. We're still in the season. I know we're honoring these seniors, but it's the last time we're going to be here. I would rather have something down the road, maybe do it next year. Maybe look, he's going to be in the Ring of Honor. He'll be put up there whenever he's done, and maybe that's the time to really celebrate things. And that's probably the time that he would want and appreciate to celebrate everything.
Yeah, good point. Probably fair. I wonder if we should try to, I don't know, garner some sort of groundswell of just simply the community and the fans. Or maybe that would be awkward too. You know, I don't think there's anything that could actually happen on Saturday that would check all the boxes. Either we annoy him, you know, with some sort of grand gesture that he just ignores because he's focused on the game. Like maybe there's just nothing to be done and we just enjoy the final home game.
He's such a regimented, disciplined person, you know, that he really doesn't get outside of kind of the moment. And I think that's part of what's made him so successful. And so I don't know that he would know how to react. I think it would just be all about, hey, I really want to focus on these seniors and all this stuff. And it's because I don't know how to be any different. I just know how to, this is this week, and this is the routine, and this is how we respond and how we react, and this is what we do, and we don't ever change from that. And I just like to keep it that way, and which I think is part of why he might get nervous when he retires, because you don't have that anymore. It's like the regiment is not there. It's like, yeah, okay, you can kind of do whatever you want when you want, and I think that's the hardest part when it's all over for anyone. I know it was for me. Every season was like that. When the season got over, you're like, oh, man, I got all this time. And it's like, I don't want all this time. I want to know what I'm doing on Wednesday afternoon and Thursday morning and on Sunday, you know, and everything. and that's where a lot of guys get in trouble. That's where it gets challenging. And he is a creature of habit to the nth degree. So when it does happen, I do think it'll be hard for him.
Yeah, it's always, like it's kind of a false parallel, but like my father wasn't a coach, but he was a longtime pro sports executive. And, when he kind of finished his final project, he and my mother served an LDS mission, but he came back and didn't really have anything on the table, and he just simply won't retire. He's going to find other projects. He's starting all these other things, and I feel like Kyle is kind of the same way. And look, I love golf as much as the next guy, but you know what it's like to step aside after a long career. You can only play so much golf, and it's also one thing to be like, hey, I want to spend all my time around family. Okay, we'll go spend 5 days with 6 grandkids in a house and see how long you love doing that if you have to watch them the entire time. And I'm not implying that Coach Witt does not want to spend more time around his family. He's a very involved husband, father, and grandfather. But I wonder what post-football life will look for Kyle. I will say this.
Yeah.
I do not believe he ever gets into TV, but I actually think he would be really good at it if he wanted to do any of the media stuff.
Yeah, well, he's got such a great look about him, with that wavy gray hair and that chiseled jaw and all, and he speaks eloquently. And when I retired, I lived on a chain of lakes in Orlando, Florida. I went fishing every morning. I come back, I jump into my swimming pool. I go play a round of golf. I come back, go jump back in the swimming pool, and then I'd have dinner and I go back out on the lake and go fishing. And I did that for 2 weeks every day, and I thought it was going to be the most incredible thing of my life. And I was bored out of my mind. And I'm of that, like your dad, where I have not retired, and I don't know that I ever will retire. And I love being engaged and in doing a lot of different things I'm doing. So I get it. I'm sure Coach Witt will find plenty to do when he's done coaching football.
Well, I mean, look, I think everybody would love the option of waking up every day and just doing whatever you want to do, right? And Coach Witt, after 30-plus years of doing this, certainly has earned that right when he decides that it's time for him. But I want to move over here, Scott, because, there's this website, I want to give them some credit here, that do a really good job of actually simulating the rest of the season in the Big 12. And you can pick who wins which game and then kind of play it out to see what the tiebreakers look like. If Cincinnati beats BYU, okay, so if Cincinnati beats BYU, we have an interesting dynamic on our hands. So let's walk through this for a second. And by the way, I don't think they're going to. We'll get to that in a minute. But if Cincinnati beats BYU, Arizona State beats Colorado, Utah handles their business against K-State coming up this week, and then next week Arizona State beats Arizona, Utah beats Kansas, and BYU beats UCF. As a result of Cincinnati's loss to Arizona and as a result of Arizona State beating Texas Tech without Baron Morton, it's actually Arizona State that gets in over Utah or BYU because they have that win over Texas Tech. Like, there's more than most people realize that, like, Arizona State has to lose. It's not just BYU because that win over Texas Tech, even though Baron Morton was hurt, that will catapult Arizona State back into the Big 12 championship. However, what has to happen is Cincinnati beating BYU, okay? And after the statement that BYU made over the weekend, like Texas Tech, by every metric, should have been in that game. It was a 3.5-point line. When the dust settled, it was a 3-point line. Texas Tech was the second-best rush defense in the Big 12, and Josh Hoover led the conference in pass efficiency, and BYU trounced them, okay?
Yeah.
So I view Cincinnati for BYU as a much easier matchup, even though it's on the road. So I thought Saturday was the shot for Brigham Young to get that L. Do you think Cincinnati has a chance to get this done coming up on Saturday, even though they just lost to Arizona?
Yeah, the Arizona loss kind of really gave me pause for question. The one thing I did, is in watching Cincinnati before they played Utah and kind of going through their schedule, I'm like, these guys haven't played anybody this year. Like they have not played anybody, and so I don't really know how good they really are, and I was quite shocked by kind of how average or okay they were when we played them, and I was shocked that they lost, but I don't know that I really was shocked because I'm not sure. They're probably a middle-of-the-road team that just had the fortune of having a really, really easy schedule. And yet TCU really shocked me. I thought you'd get a lot more out of them. I kind of am shocked about TCU just in general. They seem to be a school and a program that's really committed to doing it right, and for whatever reason they haven't. And so, they were a big disappointment. But I'm telling you, Saturday night in LaVell Edwards Stadium is kind of a bad place for anyone to be. It just doesn't bode well for other teams there, and that's hard. So if you're gonna have a loss, it may be easier on the road at Cincinnati. You know, who knows what Cincinnati team shows up, but it is on the road, and anything can happen. I do think it's a tough road for Utah, though, to get into the playoffs with some of the things that happened over the weekend and that scenario you just described.
Yeah, they need a lot to go down. All right, Scott, appreciate the time, man. Have a great week, and we'll chat soon.
All right, you got it. Take care.
Scott Mitchell, former Utah quarterback. Utes are back at it. Coming up on Saturday, 2 o'clock Mountain Time against K-State. The Vegas line has Utah favored by 17 over Kansas State. Our pregame coverage with Porter Larson will begin at 10 a.m. that day. We'll have 10 hours of game day coverage for you here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700. Who likes money? Porter, are you a fan of money? Do you like money? You into it?
That's a very complicated question. Do you want me to get philosophical here?
You take it in whatever direction you want. I think we would all just like our money to work for us, right?
I like money.
Okay, Porter likes money. We all like money. If you're in your car and I say, who likes money, raise your hand. Well, ultimately, it's all about your current banking situation. And if you're not happy with where you're at right now, I would encourage you to look at our friends at America First Credit Union. A credit union is not for profit. Some of these big banks very much are. I was with a big national chain for a number of years. I'll leave the name off air. And I had this issue with them a few years ago where there was clearly an error in billing. Something went through that shouldn't have. I couldn't get it frozen. I couldn't get it refunded. And we're talking hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I couldn't get anybody on the phone. Went into the branch, was summarily dismissed, closed my account. I'm like, I'm leaving. This is stupid. Because the big national brands and even some of the big local banks, they don't really give a rip about you. They're using you as a conduit to make money for them. That's why a credit union is actually the way to go. So America First Credit Union, you can help your money do more. Let's get your money making you money with compound interest built in over time with a business model that's not made for profit off your back. America First Credit Union is the official credit union of the University of Utah Athletic Department, of the Utah Jazz, of Real Salt Lake. You gain early access to all the venues. You can get into Rice-Eccles Stadium, America First Field, or the Delta Center, and it is the Delta Center, much earlier than the crowd. Cool thing about getting into NBA games early, you can get down low and you can watch these guys warm up. It's really cool. Yusuf Nurkic, believe it or not, nearly broke our triple-double streak in the market. If that happens, you're going to get like 32% off the Jazz team store. And they've got a really sleek, cool new Jazz Visa debit card as well. New member offer is this. If you make the change from your bank over to America First Credit Union, they're going to give you $100 right out of the gates, just $100. And then they're offering a $50 deposit if you open up an account for your teen. And it's never too early to teach your children how money works, for sure. Obviously, those are lessons that the earlier you learn it, the more you're likely to avoid pitfalls of debt and such. So I would encourage you to check out our friends at America First Credit Union. Here's the other thing, 87 branches here locally. There's one on like every single block. So go to americafirst.com or go to americafirst.com/deals or just stop into a branch. They're like super nice people that actually do want to help, which is something we don't get with a lot of banks. Let's get your money doing more with our friends at America First Credit Union, a good partner here of The Drive with Spence Checketts. We'll catch a break. Going to bring in Sly, Stevenson, Sylvester, more college football coming up on the other side right here on ESPN 700. LeBron James is practicing for the Los Angeles Lakers. Could we see LeBron against the Jazz tomorrow night? I love that it's sciatica, which is simply like, okay, he's finally old. Our next guest is a fan of the Los Angeles Lakers. Stevenson Sylvester, how are you, buddy?
I am great. How you doing?
What do you make of LeBron not playing so far because he has sciatica? That to me is the ultimate, like, okay, I'm now just old injury.
I mean, I think he's finally accepted it that I'm old and I get to claim all of these, right? It's like when you're a kid and they tell you can't do that till you're an adult, and then you're an adult and you just wear that excuse out, man. So I think LeBron's just embracing his elder movements, and you're going to see a lot of elderly things come this whole year and next year.
Was there a moment in time for you where you realized like your body wasn't giving you what you needed it to give? I mean, you were pretty young when you called it quits, but was there any moment there that you felt like you were kind of going the wrong way?
Not when I was playing. I don't think that happened until years after. I was probably playing basketball, and there was like a fast break, and I just couldn't get up like I used to. So, you know what? I was just like, all right, that's what it is. And I was kind of in doubt, man. I was like, is it my weight or is it I just can't jump anymore? Like, what's the deal? And so, yeah, I found out after I played.
Could you dunk it back in the day? Could you get up and dunk it?
That was the only reason I got recruited.
Oh, man.
Kalani and Coach A came to my basketball game, and they saw me out on a fast break, and they were like, okay, we could do something with this guy. So, yeah, man, I only got recruited because I was a little bit of an athlete back in the day.
Oh, really interesting. Did you ever get somebody good? Did you ever put somebody into a backboard?
Oh, yeah, man.
Nice.
Greg Oden.
Seriously?
AAU ball. We play in those games, and I actually caught an oop and an out of bounds play. We had this nice design, and Greg Oden, 7 foot tall, however tall he is, standing under the hoop, had no idea. I came up, 2 hands, nuts on the head. It was a classic moment. So I'm never gonna forget that one. That was good.
I love that final sentence there. Sly, I'm sorry. Like, you've accomplished a ton on the football field, but as a basketball guy, I now have my favorite Stevenson Sylvester moment. That is awesome.
The visual is probably not as good as it felt for me, so we're good.
Do you have video of that by chance?
Oh, no, man. Back then, I'm too old for video. I don't know what's going on.
No, I hear you. All right. Look, it's weird what we do in media. At times we try to just reach for things that maybe aren't there, but I don't know if the BYU loss woke this team up, but they're averaging 51 points a game, Sly, over their last 3 after that loss. What on offense is clicking, and what specifically is standing out to you?
It's confidence, right? I feel like I see a lot more smiles. I see a lot more things. Like it was pretty evident after the first 2 drives, right? There was frustration after the first 2 drives, and there was a definite adjustment. I could definitely see. My biggest thing was I was seeing Coach Harding headbutting the offensive lineman, like, let's go, pumping him up on that 3rd drive. I'm like, okay, we're about to run the ball. But I think it's confidence in knowing exactly what they do well. They run the ball extremely well. And even more so before the BYU loss, it was that Texas Tech game, man, and how disappointed this offensive line and the offense was specifically for not performing to the best of their abilities. I thought they took that personally, came out against West Virginia, had a great game, and then ASU after that, and so on and so forth. But I just think that the ownership and confidence is coming at the right time, and these guys are understanding exactly what they can do each and every output, man. And so, and then, at the end of the game, of course, we're scoring a little more. I think it was 53 at Colorado, 45 at Cincinnati, and then 55 should have been 56 the other night. They are not passing the ball in the 4th quarter. We are actually just running the ball so effectively that we're able to put on an additional 14 points, right? And of course, Baylor kept throwing the football, so we had to stay a little aggressive on our side, but we're just running the ball so effectively from the first quarter all the way to the 4th that it doesn't matter whether it's our first or second unit. Our second unit is just as dominant, man. So I absolutely love this whole team and the way that they're putting stuff together and putting it on tape right? It's a lot more to put it on tape than just talk about it. And I think that's what they're doing now. They're putting it on tape.
So we all know that Bird can fly, but after watching him throw 17 out of the way, like that was a grown man run. How do you think, we were talking to Scott about this a little bit earlier, and I want your perspective on this as well, because it feels like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because when Devin is fully healthy, he's so electric, but it feels like when he's not right, it's pretty easy to tell rather quickly whether it was Tech or BYU in the second half. And certainly during the Baylor game, it's like, well, what's going on with him? But as Coach Witt said earlier today, as Devin and Bird both said after the game, like it's an embarrassment of riches, not an issue to have two guys that can play the quarterback position really well. But how do you think we're going to see them just kind of traverse this space the rest of the way, the coaching staff and the two quarterbacks right now?
Well, for me, yeah, embarrassment of riches is an awesome way to put it. But you still have to utilize it, right? We talked about in years past that how deep the roster is and what we can do with XYZ, but we haven't utilized it, right? I'm like, so do we actually have a deep roster? But you're actually seeing that. Bird Finklin, it's kind of like Daniel Bray, right? Daniel Bray in that West Virginia game made a name for himself, and we're like, okay, we got a guy, let's start using him. Lo and behold, the middle part of the season, we start using him. He's an absolute threat to where even if he's on the field right now, the defense respects him, whether he's a decoy or not, right? We have elite speed, right? You got Wayshawn Parker who gets into the open field and nobody can catch him. It doesn't matter if the DB has an angle or not, right? And he's our running back. He's our power running back, right? And then you got Bird Finklin and Daniel Bray, and these guys get into the open field. We got elite speed on this team, elite talent, and these guys are just tough, man. And so that's just even more of the cherry on top. And I just absolutely love Bird's unwillingness to go down. Right. He just doesn't want to go down. He wants to get to the end zone every single play. There's no slide in his game. And he's just so fast that, defenses have a hard time. But embarrassment of riches is a perfect word. But it's all up to the coaching staff on being able to utilize all of that talent.
I'm not trying to be nitpicky here. It's just kind of interesting to see this dynamic shift a little bit. After the Baylor game, Utah is now 7th in the conference defensively. And typically, this is a defense that's first or second in most metrics. But the one area where I think a lot of attention has been, and it's been interesting to hear Coach Witt talk about this quite a bit, just continued kind of missed tackles, blown assignments. I mean, look, let's be clear. That game was never in doubt. But Sawyer Robertson throws for 430. And for a minute there, it looked like the defensive issues, missed tackles and such, might allow Baylor to hang around. I never felt like that game was out of reach. But for a Utah defense to be 7th in the Big 12, Sly, is just a little bit of an outlier. Now, the offense is second only to Tech, and they're the best rushing offense in the conference. There's plenty of good.
In the country.
Yeah, correct. There's plenty of good, but most of the good is on offense. Are you surprised by that?
No. You got to respect the evolution of the game and how things are transpiring. Being on a sideline on Saturday, Baylor's receivers are actually really, really good, man. Mm-hmm. You got to give them respect. And first of all, Spence, we got to keep on this narrative of Utah's not performing, and we got to hold them accountable, right? I absolutely love the standard of the Utah being that our defense is really, really good. We need them to do better because we're getting to the end of the season and we get the postseason play, and you're going to get top tier talent every single week. And so there's going to be no excuses at that point. You've had a whole season to make up for it. And but I just think that, we got to give Baylor their respect. Sawyer Robinson, they really didn't have much. They had an outstanding, Josh Cameron was an outstanding receiver, and that he's a redshirt junior. He's going to have a bright future. Big body, can run all the routes, tough, great hands. Their tight end is actually probably, if not the best tight end in the country, he's one of the top tight ends in the country, and we shut him down pretty much from my eyes. But I just think that they had that slot fade, and then they had the zone sit that was just working for them, and they just rode that horse. And Sawyer Robinson, I'll tell you, he wasn't comfortable, but you throw it 60 times, and you're 50%. 50-50. I don't know how to put it in perspective. I don't want to, make our defense get comfortable because they should do better. But at the end of the day, he threw it 60 times and all fade balls with talented receivers. You're gonna get something. And I just loved how the other phases of the game was responding. Our offense responded when our defense wasn't doing well, and our special teams and the defense got a stop in that third quarter when we needed them to get a stop to get our offense back so we can get some separation. I just think the complementary football in that Baylor game is what we have to respect and definitely understand when a team gets down like Baylor got down. All they're doing is throwing the football, which is what you want to do. I just think that, they were just fortunate enough to come away with some of those 50-50 balls.
No, it's a fair point because, you're down 28-10 in the first half. And by the way, like when Baylor has won games this year, it's been on the arm of Sawyer Robertson. I mean, that's and then you're down 42-20, and then you got to chuck it all around. And so the stats are going to be a little bit inflated for sure. But let me ask you about Scooby, who, the pick six, love it. Awesome. Good to see that. And then the fight down the stretch that ultimately, I think, against the Ashton Hawkins kid, where I didn't see exactly what happened. The replay looked like, they had been talking all game. But you love the pick six. You don't love the losing your composure. He's just too important to the team. And I don't know what the discipline is going to look like. But, where are you at on the scale of like, okay, pick six, awesome, play with emotion and passion. But in that moment, you got to, do what you can to maintain your composure and walk away. From a player standpoint, what'd you make of the fight down the stretch?
I'm a little different. I don't think there was anything wrong with what Scooby did.
Okay.
It was absolutely disrespectful for what what's his name, Cole Wilson, that receiver. What he did, he caught the ball and then got up and stormed directly over to him. I have no idea what he said, but I would have did the same thing. So I can't do that. I don't think the discipline's going to be steep. It's one of those like the discipline is you're not going to play the first half of the next game. This is your fault for that. So you got to live with that. And you're going to be hurting the team in that capacity. When I was growing up, that was the best way to discipline me, was to take me out of my sports, not allow me to play. And I learned from that. Scooby Davis, I think he's going to understand, like, you're valuable to this team. We need you. So we need you to be smart in those capacities. But you also have to understand that you ain't going to put up with no crap. Because if you allow that on film and people see that, then people are going to continue to come at you that way. So if you stand your ground and you understand what's right, it's kind of like what Jalen Ramsey was talking about this weekend with Jamar Chase. He's like, look, we playing football, but you go into something that's outside of football and football's out the window. We going back to the streets, and there's just a level of respect, and it's very hard. A lot of people are probably going to think twice about it, but it's just like the level of competitiveness is hard to gauge, right? Everybody tells you got to give it all you got. You got to be all into it. You got to have all the emotions, this and this. But at the same time, you got to be able to control it, right? And I think a lot of people need to understand and give more respect to football players, or not just football players, but athletes in general, of being able to have that switch, right? From going from an extremely competitive, hard-fought, using all of your muscles, all of your strength capacity, to the next second you're doing an interview where you have to be all calm and have your whole composure. I think that is an elite skill that I think all athletes need to get a little bit more gratitude for being able to have, because that is not easy. You're trying to tell, it's just if anybody wants to say, you tell to try to get your kid out of play mode, right? You got a 2-year-old. How do you get your kid out of play mode to sit down and eat his food, right? Like that is just, it's not easy. And I just for Scooby Davis, I know it was a tough moment, but it's a back and forth game. They're a highly competitive team. They both were talking smack, and we wish he didn't happen. But in the game of football, me playing this game, I can't say that I would have done something differently.
Fair enough. And he will miss the first half of the K-State game. And let's move over now to what could potentially lie ahead, as Kansas State preseason was one of the teams that was picked to certainly be in a different spot than where we find them. I don't know that they were necessarily picked to win the conference, but if I remember, Avery Johnson to start the year had the best chance to be in the Heisman mix of any Big 12 player. And it hasn't manifested, Sly. They're not really good, respectfully, at anything. They're the third worst offense in the conference. If we look at their passing attack, again, Avery Johnson, thought to be a very talented kid. They're middle of the pack. They're, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're sixth worst, so I guess that puts them at 8. They don't necessarily run the ball all that well. They're the fourth worst rushing team in the conference. If we pull up their defensive stats, they're mid-table overall. When you look at their passing defense, they're also right in the middle. I mean, their defensive numbers are a little bit better than their offensive numbers, but this is, by really any measurable metric, this is a pretty mediocre team. Utah is a 17-point favorite according to the odds. So what do you think we're going to see? Because look, you know this as well as anybody. If Utah beats K-State on Saturday like 14-10, it's not going to do anything. We've got the 2 losses. They are what they are. For Utah to even continue to be in the conversation or in consideration for an at-large bid for the CFP, we got to keep curb stomping teams. We've got to keep embarrassing them the way that we have been. Can Utah do that to K-State coming up on Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, and this is the first time we can actually say that that's possible, right? Because it's like, even at the end of the game, we're not trying to rack up the points, but how effectively our second unit is running the football, we can still get into the end zone at any point. And you're not going to tell them, like, hey, don't go into the end zone. The only way you're saying that is if we are taking a knee in victory formation. But, here nor there, you got to respect your opponent. Avery Johnson still has the talent, and yes, he's had an off year, but he still has the talent. That means that he can come out and have a performance at any given day. Now, this being senior day and you being a highly touted team, the motivation for teams like a Baylor or like a Kansas State or Kansas is to play spoiler, and so you don't want to give them an opportunity. So for me, I jump on them early and often, establish the dominance and talk that talk and walk that walk on Saturday, especially at home, and make sure they understand exactly where their place is in this game, and then we can go out and we can see amazing plays from guys like Bird and getting these second unit guys, and hopefully Daniel Bray has an amazing day on Saturday and make these seniors go out the right way. I think well deserved. They've been through a lot of adversities these last 4 years, from riding high in the Rose Bowl to a lull these last 2 years, and then doing pretty good this year. And so you want to finish strong for these seniors is got to be the main mission. And you give everybody their respect. They have athletes over there, right? Upsets happen all the time. 17.5-point favorites is very, very favorable. I like it. I don't think there's anything against it. I do understand that they are not having such a great year, so you got to keep it that way. I got to study a little bit more tape to see exactly what they like to do or where their faults are or where we have an edge. But just off paper and what I've seen through the season from, their first game, this is something where Utah should dominate in Utah football type of perfection.
From my standpoint, a 2:00 kickoff feels almost ideal. From a player's perspective, what do you make of the time slot?
It's a lot better than 10 a.m. I tell you that much.
Sure, yeah.
I love it, right? And so there's give and take with everything. Of course, a 10 a.m. game is the absolute worst. 8 p.m. game, you're kind of just waiting around all day, but you get in that 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock game, that is perfect, right? I'm still waking up at my normal time. I get to the stadium 2.5 hours before kick, and I get through my warm-up. I do everything, and I'm good. I'm out of the game and done by 6 p.m. I can still go have my little party at the house, like, hey, we all good. But I think the 2 o'clock kick is actually perfect. One, for Utah fans being late in November. Hopefully there's not a lot of extracurricular activities that they can make it to the stadium. And then 2, for the players, it's great that it's not super early and it's not super late. It's kind of perfect for when their brain is going normally to a normal day at the office.
All right, you referenced that it's senior night / afternoon, and since you played for the man, I wanted to ask you about this interesting subplot, which could be Witt coaching his final home game for Utah football. And it's funny, Sly, because I'm kind of conflicted. I don't know if it's it. There are a lot of people that are more connected to the situation that do believe Saturday is Kyle's final home game as Utah's coach. But it's a weird thing because I honestly feel like he's given so much to, of course, the football program, the athletic department, but also the community. If it's his final home game, I kind of feel like something should be done to honor him. But I would imagine if he was presented with that idea, he would summarily push back on that. Fair to say?
Exactly. He's such a humble guy. Absolutely love Coach Witten. One of my favorite things to say is I was his first recruiting class, right? That actually makes me sound old, but I'm also proud to say it. He's an outstanding coach, and I have absolutely no idea. I thought I have like inklings, like, okay, this might be it. Oh, he might go. I have absolutely no idea, man. Because the heart of a competitor, it literally fluctuates, and honestly, I would take his word for it when he literally doesn't know what he wants to do. Because even before I interviewed him on Saturday night, right after the game, he comes into my room and he's just like, man, I love coaching. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like you want to stop. And so you got to respect the man, and I absolutely love it. And the Utah fans and Utah community, as long as that guy's around, he knows how to do it. You know that you got a strong foundation with him at the helm, man. And it's true, man. Being a competitor and, the university supporting him and giving him what he needs to make his job easier is everything. And he's able to turn 3-star, 2- and 3-star guys into 4-star, 5-star draft picks, man. And so he just understands what he needs at coaching. Of course, the ever-changing NIL transfer portal, evolution of the game is kind of nerve-wracking. But I think if there's any coach in the country that's been able to weather the storm and evolve, it has to be Coach Witt, and he's done it to the best of his abilities, to where he's got so much respect from any coach that plays against Utah, any media that covers Utah. There's a constant notion of toughness and technically sound football players, and that's all because of the man at the helm, man. So got to respect what he's done for this program, and if he wants to continue coaching, I support it. Dang it.
Well said. Before I set you loose, I will not go over the dizzying tiebreaker scenarios with you, even though I feel even though I feel like I have a good handle on it. I mean, look, I'm not sure how many people understand how much help Utah needs, because even if Cincinnati beats BYU, if Arizona State wins its final 2 games, which they probably will over Colorado and Arizona, as a result of the Arizona State win against Texas Tech, that they grabbed that when Baron Morton was hurt, and Cincinnati now loses to Arizona, so that win doesn't look as good for Utah. If Cincinnati beats BYU, and BYU, Utah, and Arizona State are all 7-2, it's actually Arizona State that now gets in to the Big 12 championship game. But I'll just ask you this, because the domino that does have to fall is Cincinnati beating BYU coming up this weekend. And after that statement Kalani and his boys made on Saturday night in Provo, I have a hard time seeing that slide. What do you think before I set you loose?
Man, I agree with you, man. It's going to be tough sledding. Going to the East Coast is not easy, so that helps Cincinnati out. Cincinnati plays a lot differently at home than they do on the road, and so Cincinnati kind of has an advantage there. But BYU is all about business. I think that they kind of missed the boat last year, and that's running in the back of their minds. And so this is a late kickoff, and so it's I don't know. It's going to be a tough game, and I think it's a game that all Cincinnati fans have circled, and BYU fans. Cincinnati back in the top, or still in the top 25, and so it's going to be a tough matchup. Sorsby's going to be on his best game because of how bad he played last week. But yeah, I think BYU has the edge in that game. I would give it to them as far as the way their offense rolls, as far as the way their defense goes, and the complete team that they have. But you got to respect your opponents, and I think it's going to be a close bout. I think what's the line on that game? It's 2.5. It's a 2.5 line, yep. And they get the edge to BYU, man. So I agree with that. I just think that it's going to be one of those games that's hopefully it's a blackout in Cincinnati, and we get done with this Utah game, and we can go home and watch it, because it's going to be one of those that it's gonna be for the record books. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be a good matchup.
Sly, you're the man. My favorite part of the interview is your description of dunking on Greg Oden, and I'll just leave that there, my friend.
If I can remember it, it's gonna be. I wish I had a photo. I'd have it on my office wall, but it's not. Cameras didn't work that great back then.
Well, I only got dunked on, so congratulations for dunking on people, Sly. Thanks for the time, buddy.
You got it.
Stevenson Sylvester, one of the best to ever do it at the University of Utah. Do we have anything like if a texter can text in Sly's description of his dunk on Greg Oden? I mean, I don't know. That was like borderline dump button worthy, but we don't have one of those. I got like 5 different texts from friends that were listening that heard that description.
It's a cinematic description.
It was hilarious. It was very funny. And I actually think, look, in the modern day and age of how this business is going, McAfee drops F-bombs on ESPN now. Like Sly can say that on ESPN 700.
Well, hey, we were without the FCC for like 2 months. That was our time. Yeah. If you wanted to go there.
Okay. Well,
sorry. You were wearing no sleeves for a while.
Well, that was just because I came straight from the gym. Let's be very clear. It wasn't like showing anything off.
I'm just saying.
We have 4 viewers on our YouTube channel. Okay, we're not moving the needle here.
You gonna ride a Harley in?
Maybe.
That'd be cool.
I don't have a Harley.
You ever been on one?
Yeah, for sure. I just don't own one. Because money is the root of all evil. We've already talked about this. All right, we'll catch a break. Speaking of the man who drives his Harley on set, Coach Witt, he addressed the media earlier today, as we do every Monday during the season. When there's a game, of course. Bye weeks, Kyle does not address the media. We bring those conversations back around to you. Tony Parks will stop by, and maybe I'll do the rest of the show shirtless. Maybe. You don't know. Check out the YouTube channel. Keep it here, ESPN 700. Monday Night Football features the Dallas Cowboys at the Las Vegas Raiders. That comes your way when we say goodnight on the other side of 6 o'clock. Your Cowboys are going to win. Porter's wearing his Dallas Cowboys star T-shirt, and I still have my shirt on, by the way, even though you were mocking me last segment. Look, you come straight from the gym. You wear what you wear. I'm not rolling out in public. Are your Cowboys going to get it done tonight in Las Vegas?
Can you phrase it the way you did during the break?
Your Cowboys are going to win tonight, aren't they? Don't the Raiders suck? That's exactly what I said.
That is exactly what you said. The problem is that, yes, the Raiders suck, but I still don't know how to answer the first question because that doesn't necessarily guarantee that the Cowboys are going to come out and perform. They love to play down a level if the team they're playing is down there. So we'll see. Raiders have some weapons that do scare me a little bit, but like you said, they're not a real great put together piece. Probably going to be a close game.
Who on the Raiders scares you? Geno Smith?
The
Ashton Genty, maybe.
You know that guy in the stands that's at every game?
Yeah, he's
got all
the
dude. Yeah, he scares me.
What do they call that? The pit?
The black hole.
The black hole.
Yeah.
Apropos. I'm just surprised to see the Cowboys is only a 3.5-point favorite.
I'm not.
Over under is 49.5, so maybe some points will be scored. Does Dallas play any defense at all? Do they? They're pretty bad defensively, right?
The problem is that they kind of bend but don't break, and then they just give up a big play, right? Now, they'll have a pick six, they'll have a forced fumble, and forced turnovers here and there. It's so inconsistent. It's hard to really put a finger on.
Porter, I'm trying to put together a prize picks lineup, bro. You're not helping me at all.
Here's some advice for you.
Yeah,
stay away from the Cowboys if you want like any sort of predictability. Get Dak if you want a bunch of yards.
Yeah, that's about it. Maybe a Dak and CD compound interest.
Yeah.
Maybe Dak finds seed in it.
There you go.
All right, Monday Night Football comes your way tonight, the final pro football game of Week 12. But as we do every Monday during the college football season, we let you hear from the head coach himself. Here he is, Coach Witt.
A little bit about the Baylor game. First of all, I thought we did some good things. A lot of explosive plays on offense. Bird Ficklin obviously came in the game and gave us some spark and some, really ran the football exceptionally well. He only carried it, I think it was 6 times, but on 165 yards. So he was a bright spot for us. Wayshawn Parker goes over 100 yards again and really is continuing to separate himself in the backfield from other guys and doing a good job. Not a lot in the throw game, didn't need to. We were committed to the run in this game and ended up piling up almost 400 yards of offense, rushing offense. So a lot of good things offensively. Offensive line played well again. That's been a theme the entire season. Defensively, certainly gave up more points and yards than you'd like, but scored a touchdown, set up another touchdown with a pick six and an interception. I think it ended up inside the 10-yard line. So good stuff there. Baylor, as I mentioned, going into the game, outstanding receiving corps, and feel no different after the game. That's the best receiving corps that we've played, and the quarterback is really good from the pocket. They threw for a ton of yards, 400 plus, but we were able to come away with a victory. Special teams, kind of a non-factor. Not a lot going on special teams-wise with either side, and so that was good to get the win. They're, like I said, they got some good players. They got size, athleticism, and speed and length and all that. So they were certainly a team that until we started to separate there in the second half, it was a pretty competitive game. Coming up this week, Kansas State back home, final home game of the year, senior day. So we get to recognize our seniors, and it's a good kickoff time, 2 o'clock. So we like that. A little bit of a roll here. We got some momentum going into this game, and got to try to hang on to that. All starts with a great week of preparation. It starts today with that, and we're in pretty good health. We'll find out as the week goes on. With some guys that might be a little questionable, but for where we are in the big picture, health-wise, got no complaints this time of the year. So, questions.
address, Utah. It says great win Saturday, but about 400 yards passing given up in the last game. What's your plan to tighten the screws for this week's game?
Yeah, well, like I said, going in, they're a talented receiving core. We expected them to, they've been throwing for over 300 a week all season long, and so it wasn't a surprise that we were tested deep. In fact, gosh, it must have been 15 fade balls thrown in that game, 50 balls at least. I mean, it was one after another. And so we needed to make a few more plays than we did. There's no doubt about that. But we've been good in pass coverage all season long. We're still amongst the leaders in the conference in both pass yardage given up and pass defense efficiency. And so just got to keep working at it. We'll miss Scooby, obviously, the first half of this game, which is not ideal for us. He's been a very consistent player for us this year, so that'll give other guys opportunity, though. So that's it.
On Saturday night, you had talked about how Devin has just been banged up enough.
Yeah.
It's still questionable each week. Is there a situation where Bird starts this game or the last game, or kind of where do you kind of see that? Is it still just kind of up in the air?
Day by day is what we're taking it, and that's the best answer I can give you. If I knew any more than that, I would share most of that with you, or some of that. But it's just a situation where Devin, there's a lot of physicality in his game, with all the runs he does, and scrambling from the pocket in addition to the design QB runs. So he takes some physical. It takes a physical toll on him, but he's a tough kid. He loves it. He's not he loves running the football, and he's been effective at it. So we'll just see what happens. But certainly there is a scenario where you could see Bird. I'm sure of that, but we'll see.
You guys have blown out teams in each of your wins.
Mm-hmm.
Are style points kind of a consideration for you guys with the college football playoff?
No, I don't believe in humiliating anybody or trying to run up the score. When you're playing a throw team like Baylor, no score. You got to have a 4-score lead to be safe because they throw the ball so effective they can strike from anywhere, and so that's a little different than if you're playing a team that is a run-oriented team and you get up a few scores. But no, to answer your question, I don't subscribe to that. We don't subscribe to that. There's been games this year where we certainly could have piled on more points, but I just don't think it's not who we are. Yeah.
Morning, Coach.
Morning, PK.
Now, I know you're going to say your focus is on Kansas State.
Absolutely, 100%, and nothing else matters.
You don't even know that it's your birthday this week because it's all...
Oh, stop. I can't believe you said that. Okay.
But I'm going to ask you this question anyway. The way your team is playing right now, which obviously is at an extremely high level, do you think right now that it is playoff worthy?
You know what? We're going to take things one game at a time, PK, and see if we can see how we do against Kansas State. But I'll tell you right now that this team has a lot of confidence. We've got a lot of momentum going right now. The leadership is outstanding, and we think we're playing good football. Is it good enough? We'll find out. We got to take care of our business first, starting with this week. And when the dust settles and the regular season's over, we'll see where we're at and what kind of opportunities are there.
You'd mentioned that Devin in that situation sort of day-to-day, obviously with him just being hampered with the injury. Is there any scenario this season where you shut him down just because, you're worried about his long-term health or is the injury, I guess, severe enough for it to render him just shut down for the season?
No, and we would. That's not my decision. Obviously, that would be a medical decision. And so you're asking, going forward, are we going to shut him down, or
is there any scenario where that happens? Is his injury severe enough in that case?
As it stands right now, no. No, as it stands right now, but you got to be able to function and be, he gets pretty sore and pretty beat up, as I mentioned, and so, but no, we don't feel that he's been put in harm's way any more than the next guy as far as long-term and that type of thing.
Kyle, after the game, you mentioned that Devin, his mastery of the offense and just his experience in the offense is what led to the decision to keep him out there. But how do you balance that versus how he's performing, how he's executing in terms of how, playing him?
Yeah, well, it's all in the equation. during it's game by game and within the game itself. When we feel that the game is out of reach, then we've tried to get him out in those situations, and we've supplemented him, as you noticed, throughout the game with Bird. Sometimes they're in there. A lot of the time they're in there both at the same time, but Devin doesn't have a lot of a role when Bird is at the quarterback. He was more of a guy that just is window dressing out there. But we just rely on the medical staff to help with those decisions, and as long as they say he's good to go, and he says he's good to go, then we just try to do things as intelligently as we can, and like I said, when the game seems to be in the bag, so to speak, then we try to get him out of there.
Kyle, at the beginning of the season, you said that this could be the greatest offensive line you've ever had. 10 games in, have they met expectations?
100%.
Ask them?
100%. They're surpassed
expectations?
I would say as advertised, exactly what we expected, and if anything, maybe even better than we expected. We're second in the nation in rushing the football, and that's a real good indicator of the physicality and the talent level of your front.
And then did you happen to see the catch that went viral by a certain player that will go nameless?
Certain high school player?
A certain high school player at Rice Cycle Stadium?
Absolutely. That was very impressive for that, whoever that guy was. And it's as good a play as I've ever seen at any level. I don't think I can get in trouble for saying that. We still don't know who the guy is, but anyway. Yeah, good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Kyle, I kind of wanted to ask you a big picture question. I know you mentioned you're focused on Kansas State, but it seems like you have two starting caliber quarterbacks on your roster, and you obviously view them very highly. There's been scenarios in the past where teams like Texas have had Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning on their roster long term. Given just the way the offseason goes, is there a scenario where you can see Bird and Devin staying on the roster next season together, just given the circumstances of how the portal is and all that?
We sure hope so, and that's remains to be seen, and we'll, that will be addressed. Obviously, they've tweaked the recruiting a little bit now in the dead periods, where December is now completely a dead period, and the portal does not open until January now, so you have a little more time after the regular season to sort those things out than before. Before, you'd have to start those conversations now with a lot of your players as far as what their plans are and that type of thing. But with what Bird's done this year and what Devin's done for that matter, we're going to have to really step up to hang on to those guys, and that's really an administrative thing, it's not in my court. That's what kind of resources we can come up with to keep the roster together, and it'd be interesting to do the study. My guess is if you took a study of Power 4 football rosters, the $25 million rosters, the 20, and with the average one-loss record, it would just follow suit exactly with the resources available. So yeah, everyone's trying to step up in that regard.
Who's the better thrower between the two?
Devin, they have different styles. Devin gets the ball out extremely quick. He's got a quick release. He's able to go through the progressions a little quicker than Bird because he's so familiar with them. Bird maybe has a little more zip on the ball, a tad more accuracy at times, but they're different types of throwers from the pocket, and they're both outstanding, but just different. So I don't know if you can say one's better than the other. They both do it their way.
Time for one more, Sammy.
Jason Stokes Jr. only played 13 snaps on Saturday, but he had that good pass breakup. What have you seen from his development that has given you guys confidence to put a true freshman out there versus some of these pass-heavy teams?
Yeah, well, he's progressed ever since he got here. We obviously liked him out of high school. We wouldn't have recruited him. We thought he had some real upside, and you're right. He made a really nice play in the game on Saturday, and it was an opportunity to put him in the game when we got to what was it, 49-20, I think, is where we felt the game was pretty much out of reach, and gave him some opportunity, and a lot of that was Scooby, going out early, gave us an opportunity to put other guys in, and then Jason was next in line, and so that it was kind of a chain reaction. But I can tell you right now, we have a lot of confidence in Jason, and he's a guy that, as I mentioned, has really gotten better week by week and works hard and has great attitude, And Sharif, Coach Shaw just thought it was time for him to maybe get some game action and show what he can do.
All right, I completed my Prize Picks lineup. I'm going to run it by you later for tonight's Monday Night Football game.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
It's a 6-team parlay, $20 at stake, $650 if I'm able to get it done. Very risky move, but we'll go over that before we say goodnight. Deal?
I'm ready for it.
All right. Tony Parks live in studio coming up in just a little bit. But, hey, are you a small business owner? Are you an aspiring small business owner? Do you have an idea for a business? Have you applied for a loan with a bank, and have you had them say no? It's happening a lot right now. But if you are a small business owner, take heart. Good news, because my guy Leo from Seven Figures Funding can help you out. What's up, Leo? How are you, man?
You know, doing so good, Spence. So good. In fact, just a little bit ago, I just finished coaching my 8th grader and his football team to a championship. So we're excited.
Atta guy. Congratulations there. Okay, so whether, we've got a small business owner listening to the show or somebody that has an idea to create a business so they can better themselves and build a better life for their family, a lot of banks are saying no, Leo, as you know right now. How can you help people at Seven Figures Funding?
Yeah, no, I mean, every coach talks about finishing strong and staying focused. And a lot of business owners, whether you're launching something new or you're at the end of the year and you're assessing and you're feeling like, wow, I got to make something happen. And maybe it's inventory for that business, it's marketing, it's equipment, it's, money for payroll, whatever it is, funding is that fuel that gets you across the goal line. And so at Seven Figures Funding, we help new and small business owners get access to the best options on the marketplace. Sometimes that's loans, lines of credit, could be SBA. But a lot of our programs have a 0% introductory rate for up to 15 months, so you can really grow without having to worry about high interest payments. And the good news is there's zero risk to see what you qualify for. We've got a soft credit check program, won't touch your score. And so whether you're launching that new business, to build a better life for you and your family, or you're scaling the existing one, we've got options to help you and help you make 2026 your breakthrough year. It's very simple to get approved. You just head on over to sevenfigures.com. That's the digit 7 and then figures.com, and you can get that free pre-approval. Look at all your options. You'll get a text to schedule one-on-one with a funding advisor, ask any question, and hopefully learn a lot about credit money, all the stuff they didn't always teach us in school, but now you can learn that as a business owner.
I want to continue to bring this up because I think it's a cool thing you do. You referenced, a lot of high schools, colleges, they don't offer personal finance courses. Maybe people don't know how money works. Are you still offering that free credit college course?
Absolutely, yeah. It's Credit College, and it literally teaches you how to keep your credit score high. It can save you thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest. And we're on a mission to eradicate credit misinformation and help everyone do that. So you got kids, friends, family members, share it with them. We want everyone to have the highest credit score possible. So once you apply at sevenfigures.com, you'll look for an email, access our Credit College course, keep that credit high for the rest of your life.
Go to sevenfigures.com. Remember, it's the number 7. Do not spell it out. Sevenfiguresfunding.com. Leo, thank you, sir. Have a good one.
Hey, thanks, Spence.
All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Tony Parks will join us live in studio. We'll do a little the Bees announced a addition to their coaching staff, and we'll bounce around the local college football scene, do a little jazz, launch into the 5 o'clock hour of the program, and then we'll say goodnight at 6 in time for a barn burner. Cowboys and the Raiders. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. We usually save the Metallica Vatek intro walk-up song for a Vatek game because Porter is our resident Virginia Tech fan. James Franklin, huh? What do you think? James Franklin potentially on his way to take the Virginia Tech job, obviously most recently at Penn State. You could do a lot worse than James Franklin, Porter.
You could. I've been asked about this a couple times today. My thoughts are, listen, they're going to be better. Mm-hmm. I think he clearly puts them in the right direction. I think from a guy who covers the sport and objectively can look at it as a really good, solid hire. From a fan standpoint, it doesn't inspire I'm really excited. I'm stoked about this. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to, go crazy and win the ACC and take us to the playoffs. So that's, I guess, if you ask me from both perspectives there.
So it looked like he had a $49 million buyout from Penn State, but part of his deal with the Hokies, according to ESPN, includes a $9 million settlement from the Nittany Lions. Our guy left $40 million on the table. Tony Parks, is there anything that would inspire you to leave $40 million on the table that is very much owed to you?
Oh, man, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
I think that's one of those numbers where you're like, no, I think we've got a deal.
I want nothing more in life than to find a job that pays me $49 million to go away.
Yeah.
I would take that next week. How are you, TP? Good
I'm
to see
great,
you,
man. Oh, so good, man. I love it. This is such a fun time of the year with college football now just heating up in this mid-November into the late stages, the playoff race. I love it. The Bears are in first place. Let me tell you, that is a number of happy family members, man.
And we'll do some NFL, we'll do some college football, but one of my and so for our listeners that aren't aware, Tony is the voice of the Bees, and we talk a lot about players that grind in minor league baseball for years and years and years. I've told you, my friend Adam Rosales, we would go to the ballpark to watch him when he was in town. I think he was with the Sacramento minor league franchise, and my guy grinded for a decade before he finally got his call up and ended the final 4 or 5 years as a utility player in the majors, and it's such a cool story. But Keith Johnson has been called up. He's going to the show.
So happy
The
for him.
Angels have announced the hiring of Keith Johnson as the team's new third base coach. And how long has he been, waiting for this opportunity?
Forever.
Yeah.
I mean, he first of all, he's one of the best stories ever. When those guys came up to play for him, I'm sure they did their homework on him and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, the guy played for how long and went through it and played, I think he had 4 ABs at the major league level.
He was one of those Moonlight Graham.
Just got up there real quick.
Field of Dreams.
Wasn't there a long time.
Yeah.
But the way he wins the trust of people and players, the ultimate greatest mixture of old school but always evolving. But that old school doesn't leave him in terms of character, work ethic, toughness. No. He's every player loves how direct he is and just how honest he is. And now to see him get called up, he spent that season with the Marlins.
Okay.
And now on their staff, and now to see him in the Angels organization, which he has been a part of this organization for so long, to now get that call up to the bigs is, it's great when we see the players do it, obviously, but it also means so much when individuals in other parts of the business get that call up.
It's interesting. Let's stay in this space for a moment because, we have pro hockey here in the market now with the Mammoth. And one of the things that I think, in my experience, both, growing up around pro sports, working in front offices, now basically 20 years in media, you have certain experiences with different athletes from different sports. And there's something about the grinding out that it takes to become both a Major League Baseball player and a pro hockey player.
Oh, yeah.
That makes the athletes a little bit different, a little more grounded, a little more humble, a little more affable, as opposed to respectfully the NBA guys and the NFL guys, because you're drafted and boom, especially now with NIL, a lot of them are millionaires in college. And some guys go through the G League. We saw Gobert as a G League player as a rookie. And certainly there are some NFL stories of guys getting cut and toiling around in some minor league football situations before they get called back up. But the majority of the time, most of an NFL roster, most of an NBA roster, drafted, figured it out, able to carve out a spot for them. There are pro hockey players and pro baseball players that do this for years and years and years and years before they actually get called up. And that does something to the character of these guys that makes them just, again, more affable and like more approachable.
This is why I love, first of all, it's every day. So I love that part about baseball. The second thing I love is instead of shoot around at 10 a.m. and then come all the way back again, no, it's batting practice at 4 and 5, and then you're right on into what you're doing. So it's just, it's awesome, man. The other thing I love is the humility of the people involved, and not just players, but everybody else in baseball, because they've all invested so much. And for these players, to your point, they got there, they got their butt handed to them. Oh, they probably had huge stretches of batting 146. I love looking up like Lou Pinella's history, Derek Jeter's history, where you're like, nobody knew this.
Yeah.
Oh, nobody had an idea about this whole thing, did they? Right. And then you start going through and watching what it took. What was it? Tommy Lasorda, I think, lost his roster spots to might have been Jackie Robinson.
Oh, really?
I can't remember. I might be off on that.
Yeah.
But I remember Tommy Lasorda, I think, lost his roster spot to somebody like a big name.
Yeah.
And I could be totally off on that. But I remember, like, those stories are so incredible. But what you also see, guys that worked hard, made it to the major leagues, were there, and now they're back in the minor leagues more often. And they still have the focus, hunger, desire to work through it day to day. So this past year, I had a Gold Glove winner. I had the clinching World Series game winner, pitcher. I had, just accolades, trophies. You'd never know it. You'd never know it, because their attitude was nobody cares what you did yesterday. And they're just focused on winning the day and winning the moment. Oh, and by the way, very humble, very honest, very hungry. And I'll never forget, there was a player who has spent plenty of time in the bigs, had their call-ups, was a catcher for a no-hitter, Chad Wallach, and he gets a call-up this past year. And it's not new for him. Still, his energy, his emotion, you could feel it in the handshake. You could feel the adrenaline.
Yeah.
Because it means so much. So I think you make a great observation with that, and obviously having a close friend experience that tells you everything.
Well, it's one of my favorite things about just sport, where you're watching people's lives change in real time. And more often than not, and Malcolm Gladwell talks about this in his book Outliers that everybody read a number of years ago, even though there are a lot of people that have disputed his evidence to this day. But, we only hear about a great athlete, a great actor, a great band when an actor is in suddenly a movie that we all see in theaters, or a band suddenly writes one song and they're all over the airwaves, or back in the day, they were all over MTV with music videos. And we only hear about, the athlete after he makes SportsCenter or he makes the bigs and starts getting hits or whatever it is. What none of us fully realize, and certainly like golf is another unbelievable example of this, where you have a guy like Max Homa, who 3 years ago was this rising superstar. Now he's just fighting to stay on tour.
Yeah.
What we never really see, and this is why I always like to talk about sports as it teaches us life lessons, because certainly there are plenty of people that diminish the importance of sports in society, and like, you're lesser than, you waste your time on a zero-sum game. It's like, no, it's so much deeper. Because what I've always been fascinated with is the process that leads to the moment where suddenly your life changes.
Yeah.
Another example is like coaches in college basketball, where somebody takes a program from a random conference, qualifies for the NCAA tournament, wins 2 games, and suddenly they get the job at like Louisville or something. They go from making $150K to like 4 or 5 and overnight as a result of one run. It's stuff like that is like the coolest part about this job.
Yeah, I met Frankie Banali, guitarist with Quiet Riot, and he's telling me all these stories, but as he's telling me the stories, I'm like, wait, that was like 11 years of you sleeping on a couch and playing in no-name clubs that you weren't even getting paid for. You just needed a place to perform.
Yeah.
And he's telling me all about the hours behind the scenes and staying up till 4 a.m. and writing. And and it's just, you're like, whoa. Yeah, I just knew of Come On, Feel the Noise, which I think it's still not officially a hockey game until you play that song. I think that's the rule.
Yeah.
But it's so crazy to think about. Like, just when people go to the past, or I'm sure people have talked to you and were like, wait, you were an intern for that jazz team?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, you ran and picked up donuts and coffee for those people?
250 credentials during the finals. And by the way, that was before digital, so we're stringing all of those.
Right. And but with that said, what a great opportunity. No other place
100%.
you'd rather be.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know, I love telling the stories of, calling high school football games, on that were at particular times of the year and driving so far to make it happen and making phone calls. And, like, to me, it's what makes it so special, because that is when you knew it's what you wanted anyway, and you were going after it. Because if you didn't have the desire to do what it takes, it would have died right there.
Yeah.
And it's really tough because in the game of baseball, and my brother coaches college baseball, he's like, I'll see kids have the dream die right away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people told him they were great. First sign of adversity, out. He's like, I get it. Front row seat, man. College baseball, he had a doubleheader in a fall baseball game or something. Mm-hmm. And the first game, this kid was in the lineup. The second game, the kid wasn't in the lineup. And I mean, like, laid down on the back on the bench.
Yeah.
And just, and he's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Like,
he's like, well, if I'm not in the lineup, then I'll just wait until you come. And he's like, what is this?
Then you don't have what it takes.
What is going on here?
Because I've always also been fascinated about, because look, and again, this is just a life parallel that sports has always taught me. This is not a sprint. It's a marathon. It is a long game play. And if you bow out at the first sign of adversity or the first hard thing that happens to you, then you're just missing the point of really the lessons that you can learn if you continue to traverse on and move on. And I've always been fascinated about an athlete or a coach or anyone in a creative endeavor. Why do you keep going? Why did you keep going? Because there are moments for anybody in kind of the ecosystem where everyone told them no, or you ran into a roadblock. You had a piece of adversity hit. In those moments, what keeps you going? And the longer you can just hang in there, I really believe some sort of force that's higher than my understanding kicks in and will start kind of showing you the way. But sometimes it takes years and years and years. And it takes patience and it takes grit and it takes grind. And I love that about these ecosystems that lead us to these athletes that we know about.
Well, I think I think it speaks volumes of, I mean, you have obviously had to keep going. You have obviously had to do that yourself. And I have had to do that myself. I mean, not just one moment, but 2, 3, 4 moments of like life-changing, life-altering moments that have taken place. And, you know, I don't wear that as a badge of honor. I just did what I always wanted to do. It was like, okay, next best right move all the time. Next best right move all the time, no matter what. And that'll always be what it is because it becomes who you are. Like, it really becomes who you are. And it was neat watching Donovan Mitchell behind the scenes. It was neat watching Rudy Gobert, Kobe Bryant, watching these guys. Obviously, they're excellence. We know about that. But the finest details that they worked on and the finest, like, how much it mattered to them to perfect the little things and to just be the very, very best they could be. We just got a heads up from Rob Coletti with Major League Baseball that we rated excellent in every phase of our broadcast.
Oh, good.
So, like, that was like a really big deal to us, right? Like we graded an A. We were, like, so proud of that. I was talking with some of the crew on the way here. Our field crew guy was the PCL, groundskeeper of the year, our clubhouse attendant. Like, these things mean so much to them. Now, without the honors, so big props to Chris Simonson and also to Brian Sukup. But these guys, they would do it this way anyway because it's just who they are. They didn't do it in hopes of getting the graphic on Twitter. They did it just because it matters to them to be the very, very best at what they do, and you can see the details that go into it.
Yeah.
And so it's just cool to see that happen. So anyway, that's why I love when I hear you. I don't think people really, like, when I'm at the gym and I listen to the show, and I've texted you on this a few times. When I listen to you construct an interview the way you do, I'm like, dude, this, like, you don't need to hear this from me, but that is really well done.
Oh,
right?
it's nice of you, yeah.
And the conversational element on this show, that's why I listen to it all the time, because you bring to light some unique things, and then the way that you can construct an interview that just makes it great to listen to and so informational. The one you had with Sly was, I mean, it was terrific. Getting his thoughts on, you know, how would you have handled this situation? And I love it. It makes it great. And anyway, so it's just fun to be here.
No, I appreciate it. Did you hear Sly's description of his dunk on Greg Oden by chance? I got like 5 text messages like, did he just say what I think he said? I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what he said. Look, if I dunked on Greg Oden, it'd be the only thing I'd talk about. Dude was a 7-footer. He was the best defensive center in college basketball.
Well, you and I are good friends with Britton Johnson, and he was the first person at the professional level to dunk on LeBron James.
There's video of it. Yep.
And it's like grainy 7-Eleven surveillance footage.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
That would be pinned to every social media account I had. I would every 3 days be like, oh, by the way, and post.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, absolutely.
Like it's all I would ever talk about.
No, and I used to give Britton crap for this because, you remember back in the day when we were doing Jazz Pre-Aff and Post, a lot of late nights. So at times we'd go down on the court and we'd just shoot around a little bit. So a few times I'd beat him in horse because, I could take him outside and just hit a bunch of threes. And so he'd come back on air and I'd just crack on him for beating him at horse and he'd be all sad. I'm like, dude, all you have to say to me is you played in the NBA and you dunked on LeBron. You win the argument, okay? Like, you have the trump card here. Just because I hit a few threes downstairs doesn't change that you were an NBA player.
And it wasn't like the Starks Game 2 dunk against the Bulls where it was he dunked on him, but it wasn't quite as like, we're talking, as Marv would say, serving up a facial. Oh, it was thunderous. It was violent. And
he got him
in your face.
No, he got him.
Oh yeah.
One of my favorite Britton stories is he told me that at the time he was kind of toiling. He was playing overseas. Then he would come home and play in at the time the D League. It's now the G League. And Lindsay, his wife, who I love, she's just the best. Britt said he came home one day and she's like, "I need you to make the NBA."
Oh yes,
remember this?
Yes.
Like, hey,
and
dude,
you remember how he did?
Yeah, he did. He got down to Orlando, played for Doc, right? I mean, that was kind of his entryway. But can you imagine? Like, it's one thing for your wife to be like, "Hey, you forgot to load the dishwasher," or "You didn't go grocery like we needed potatoes for dinner." Lindsay says to Britt, "Hey, I'm going to need you to make the NBA."
Yeah,
and he actually did, which is just I love that Britton story. It's so funny.
Well, the other one that people don't know is So, they know about the Malice in the Palace. Because of the Malice in the Palace,
that's right.
He ends up getting an NBA job.
Is Lindsey Johnson behind the Malice in the Palace?
You know what? I think there's something to
We've
this.
got to consider this angle.
Something. Tim Donaghy, Lindsey Johnson, and they're just like, Ron, he's in. We got it.
Hey, Britton got a job because of it after Lindsey telling.
Yeah.
The visual of that is so funny to me. A wife just, I'm gonna need you to make the NBA, please.
Yeah, you're like folding up the napkin after dinner, and she goes, "Oh, one quick thing is you're picking up your plates.
Can you go accomplish the impossible?"
But he makes the NBA because of that, and then if I remember right, it was because of the insurance that they had. That their oldest son, Houston. They're like, we need him to be born before New Year's Day.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh, I forgot about that.
Just hearing these stories, because he was making like $28,000.
Right.
And then in 3 weeks makes like $100K.
Yeah.
But like that's man, mesmerizing.
Yeah. Oh man, God. So many entertaining Britton Johnson moments. Real quick,
are we on air right now?
Yes,
Britton, we are on air.
We continue to be on air. Had to remind him over and over. While we're in the space, Utah's non-con basketball schedule is not going to tell us a ton. But, Quinn Snyder was in town the other night. He was asked about Alex Jensen. He had a lot of very nice things to say. And for our listeners that may not remember or didn't know, Alex was Quinn's lead assistant for 9 years here. And, so far, what I've seen certainly is a more athletic roster. They've won all 4 games they've played. They're going to see Purdue, FW, Cal Poly, and then they're going to go. They've got a little tournament where they will play Grand Canyon, who's a tournament team. They're going to be at Cal. We'll see Mississippi State at the Huntsman in December, and then they're going to go up to Washington, and that's their final non-con. Then they're going to get into conference play, and I think this year the Big 12 is the best conference in the nation. It was the SEC a year ago. I think it's the Big 12 this year.
Oh yeah.
But what have you seen so far and your thoughts on early returns of Alex Jensen taking over the Utes?
Well, it was great. Yeah, so I had a chance to be on the call with that game this past Saturday. And I'll tell you, being around that team, being around Alex, it was somewhat reminiscent to being around that Jazz team when Gordon Hayward and then you had Rudy Gobert. And it was the early, it was the first year. Quinn Snyder. And I remember they were not winning a ton of games, but they weren't like totally embarrassing themselves all the time.
Things,
yeah, you know, but you're looking out there and you know, you have Enes Kanter leaving post-game media early. You know, there's all kinds of stuff happening. But I remember Rudy Gobert and also Gordon Hayward, they were like confident and they kept talking about it. Like, no, you know, and I could see it. They were being authentic about it. And I remember actually asking Rudy off of the air and saying, yeah, like you seem like poised or at ease about like the process here. Like what is it that you feel good about? Because you just lost 9 in a row. This is like December. And he just said there's so much winning going on everywhere. It's just people, I remember him just being like, people don't see it right now, but it will come. It will come. Well, later that year, they finished 16-7, I think, in their last 23, or 16-8 in their last 24.
Sounds about right, yeah.
We're like, okay, defensive identity, and they were winning with, like, Chris Johnson and Elijah Millsap and Bryce Cotton, and it was like, wow. Like, what is happening right now?
Played Fave and Gobert together.
Yeah.
You know, defensively, they were really good, yeah.
So that was cool to see. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to go on that kind of burst in conference play. The point was the culture was ahead of the results, and you could see it. This Utah team, while I've been around them and had a chance to talk with a number of the players, and also it's great knowing Martin Schiller the way I do, also knowing Coach Daniels, obviously Alex Jensen, you can sense it and feel it that they're perfecting processes, they're putting good things together, watching them practice, watching them shoot around, the finest of details that they go over and over. They're just going over all fundamentals all the way. So now it comes to roster construction. There's a lot that goes into it, but the process that they're in right now, Spence, if you're a Ute fan, you should feel really good about how they're beginning to build this thing. Because to your point, they're going to get into conference play, and I don't know if they're going to quite be there. But they're starting to build the foundation to get it where it needs to be.
Yeah, my hope is, like, I remember watching the Utah-Houston game a year ago, and at one point, Utah had like 8 turnovers and like 4 baskets. And it felt like it was a pro basketball team playing a junior high team. So, look, the talent on the roster, I think, is a little bit improved. They're getting good guard play from Terrence Brown and Don McHenry. Keanu's just a freak athlete. It's a good thing he's back. And we'll end here and catch a break and do football on the other side. But my hope in conference play for Utah men's basketball this year is you protect your home floor, right? Like you get some wins at home, maybe some wins that nobody's expecting. They're going to have Arizona at home. That Coapee kid is ridiculous. They get BYU at home. BYU just went to Boston and threw punches with one of the 3 best basketball teams in the country, and that's UConn, after going down early. But, you know, they also get OK State at home and Arizona State at home. We'll see Houston. We'll see UCF. So, you know, beat the UCFs, beat the Arizona States, beat the Oklahoma States, and then when these top 10, top 15 teams come in, just show that you belong on the same court. I don't know how many wins I'm expecting over a BYU or a Houston, but just show that, you know, show the fans like, hey, we belong here in a way that at times the team last year just didn't.
Saturday was a microcosm of what I think the season's going to be. They had these great moments throughout the first half. I think, you know, Terrence Brown's a guy who was score first, but now they moved him into the point guard position, and he's actually been great at when to make a play for himself or a teammate, right? McHenry has a few more levels that he can hit. Abby off the bench, I think, is ahead of schedule, and he's only going to continue getting better. He arrived late because he was playing so much with the Finnish national team. Here's where it gets interesting. So I see them at the start of that second half. Whoa, execution, defense, knocking down shots. You're like, this is terrific. I think Patrick is criminally underrated and will be great on both sides of the floor. And then all of a sudden, 8 minutes to close out the game without a field goal, clinging to the very end. And you're like, okay, now I'm seeing where some experience needs to happen because they're not sure where they're going with the ball all the time. They're not certain on all the decisions in certain key parts. And that's just going to be a part of this process. But culturally, way ahead of where I thought they would be. Fundamentals are getting there, and then obviously you're going to need high-level play.
Yeah, I just looked it up. That Houston game last year, it was 70-36.
Oh, yeah, that was bad.
Leading scorer was Gabe with 8, and honestly, it didn't even feel like it was that close. It reminded me of my freshman year. We went up to Hartford to play Hartford Public.
You told me this story.
Where Marcus Camby had played, right? And at halftime, it was 45-10, and our team manager comes up to me. He's like, hey, are they switching on the picks? I'm like, dude, it's 45 to 10.
Does it matter?
It's 40. I can't get a shot off. Like, you try to shoot a floater and their big would jump up and grab it. I'm like, I don't know if they're switching on the picks. I know that it's 45 to 10 at halftime.
Does it seem to have the 2 NBA guys on it? Was that the...
I don't know. Because Camby had left. It was just like a group of big, huge, long athletes, like Central Hartford. And, I'm playing with a bunch of future hedge fund managers in New Canaan named Tripp. And our center's like 6'2", and it's 45-10. And they're like, hey, are they switching on the picks? I'm like, dude, leave me alone.
Over, under, it doesn't matter.
Irrelevant. But just like show that you belong in a way that the team at times last year just didn't.
Agreed.
And so just a little bit of progress here or there. Since we're doing hoops, one more thought. BYU goes to Boston at TD Garden, and it looked like they were about to get run out of the gym. As I've said for a number of years, if there's a college basketball program that somehow, some way can simply capture the Northeast footprint, because a lot of teams go into California and Texas and Florida, where a lot of the talent is. There's a ton of basketball talent simply in the Northeast, in New York, in Boston, even if you include Philly, even though that's not necessarily Northeast Chicago, like that area. And Danny Hurley has built up a powerhouse that we haven't seen in stores really since Calhoun's kind of heyday with Ray Allen and such. UConn, I think, is one of the top 3 teams in the country.
Yep.
BYU, I think, was down 20 in the first half. And then, dude, AJ flipped it on, and his shot-making ability, his ability to get to the glass, to draw fouls, and play within a team concept. He finished with 25 points. Most of his damage was in the second half. Richie couldn't hit a shot, 0 of 7. Rob Wright with a costly turnover down the stretch. That was a high-level basketball game. BYU's going to win a lot of games this year, man. They've got something ticking down there.
They're a contender. You can call them light contender. That's fine. They're a contender.
For sure.
And by the way, I don't think they're anywhere near their best, and neither's UConn, right? There's going to be some time.
But that crowd, Tony, as you know, that Boston crowd was 90% UConn.
Yes.
I mean, that's a crowd that loves the UConn Huskies.
No, but they're the team that can go 2 for 12 from 3 like that and then turn it right around, start to hit a barrage of shots. My big thing is, can they get themselves, what is the best version of them defensively? That's what I need to find out as they go forward, as they continue to build what that team is. But do they have the talent? Do they have the explosive playmaking? Yep, and yep. And they are going to be, I mean, you can call them light contender, heavy contender, whatever. They're a contender, and they're a real threat to do something not just nice in March, to do something really special.
Yeah, I wonder if they have the size to hang with the Houstons on the glass. Ultimately, we had Keba up here. He is a beast of an athlete, but he is only 6'8". The Rob Wright news, we'll see how they kind of traverse that space. He's their best perimeter defender. Of course, he ran into some trouble last week. Dawson Baker got his minutes against UConn. But to go to Boston and to throw punches with UConn, even in a loss, I think if you're a BYU fan, you should feel good.
Yeah, Saunders goes 0 for 7 from 3. Boscovich goes 0 for 5 from 3. And you lost by a deuce.
Yeah.
Bro, you're going to be some big dog fights. It's crazy, too, because conference play, you could be really, really good and find yourself 3rd or 4th in that conference
100%.
this year. I mean, that's a really, really good conference. So I'm curious to see them when you get into the tournament, where they're at when it comes to March matchups, all those things, because that's the ultimate one and done.
Yep.
But they finally have a team that now has that level of talent where instead of, okay, do you think they could get to the Sweet 16? Oh, I think if they got bounced there, as AJ said, they would be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And when he lays that down, I think he's being authentic, and I think he's right. Because he's saying, you're not paying me, we've heard, up to $7 million or whatever. You're not paying me that to come here.
Right.
And, help you get to the second round.
He's a special player, man. He's as good as anybody, just from a pure talent standpoint, that I think we've had in the state. They've already played Carolina in an exhibition. They open with Nova out of the Big East. Then they go to Boston, throw punches with UConn. They're going to see Wisconsin, a top 25 team. They've got Miami. They've got Clemson. By the time conference play rolls around, they're going to be ready to go. So we'll see what the Big 12 conference looks like in hoops. We'll catch a break. We'll do some football. A good weekend for Utah, a good weekend for BYU. But before we catch a break, who likes money? Raise your hand. Are you in your car? Do you like money? Okay. If you're not raising your hand, you're lying. Let's make sure your money is working for you. Let's make sure you're doing more with your money. And if you're with a big national bank or even some of the bigger state banks here, I can promise you you're not doing enough with your money because these banks are built for profit. They're built to make money off of your money. A credit union is a nonprofit, okay? So they're existing to help you make your money work for you and do more with your money. So our friends at America First Credit Union have a great offer for you right now. First of all, they're the official credit union of the Utes, of Real Salt Lake, and also of the Utah Jazz. You can get early entrance to Rice-Eccles Stadium, to America First Field, or the Delta Center, and it is the Delta Center. You can get early entrance to all the venues, a bunch of discounts on concessions, a bunch of discounts on merchandise, and they've got a new member offer right now. So get out of the national branch situation, again, not designed to help you do more with your money, and consider a credit union, namely America First Credit Union, where you get $100 if you open up a new account. They're just giving you $100, and they're also giving you $50 if you open up a new account for a teen. It's never too early to teach your children how money works. Go to americafirst.com or stop by one of their 87 local branches, and you'll actually talk to a person. It's breaking news, customer service by banks. We'll catch a break. More with Tony coming up next on ESPN 700. All right, got a little Monday Night Football tonight. The Cowboys and the Raiders. Whoa. Goodness gracious. Tony Parks is live in studio. Let's make sure Tony's mic is on. Hello, Tony.
Remember when that was a game we were like, okay,
yeah,
Dallas and Oakland or L.A., right? Yeah, here we go.
Well, as a Jets fan, I cannot say anything because Tyrod Taylor is our new starting quarterback. But, yeah, Porter's Dallas Cowboys in Vegas to take on the Raiders. So when it comes to these window games, the only thing I ask for is, like, high level. It feels like last night, Philly, Detroit, fine if you like defensive battles. It feels like a lot of the window games, the Thursday, Sunday, Monday night games this year, left a little to be desired.
Agreed. And I thought I was excited about last night's game. It still had the suspense.
Mm-hmm.
But my goodness, can anybody just punt the ball when you need to? Or how about kick a field goal when it's there? That blew me away. And I'm all about, you have to take chances at times and do things like that. But there's no need to hit on 19.
Right. No, exactly. All right, we did a little college basketball last segment. Tony's going to do a bunch of games this year. Was on the call for the last Utah game last week. Good weekend, Tony, if you're a Ute fan, if you're a BYU fan. Let's do a little Utah, then we'll move over to BYU. Ultimately, we'll get the CFP rankings tomorrow night, and those are the only rankings that matter now, but Utah does move up a couple of spots in the AP. You heard from Coach Witt earlier. There were a few moments where you're kind of like, okay, some missed tackles, Baylor's down, Sawyer can really fling it. Are they going to get back into this? But I don't think I ever felt like Utah was in danger of losing that game.
Nope.
That's where I was at.
Physically, this team is at a supreme level right now. They are mowing people over. 55-28, it was a can of whoop, and you never felt like Baylor was really going to be able to come up for air. And you just feel like right now, Utah they have things right. Well, it's like that game they had against Arizona State, and I was doing the PA for that, and we know they missed their opportunities there against BYU, but the physicality and the level that they were playing with that, and the fact that they're using Bird Ficklin even more often the way that they are, it's starting to show a different level of flex. And that team, it's so crazy. Utah is 8-2, and then my Michigan Wolverines are 8-2. Utah looks like a playoff team, straight up. They look like a playoff team. Will they get in or not? We'll find out. They need some help. Michigan looks nothing like a playoff team, and I love my guys. Mm-hmm. And I really wish I could have gone to that game last weekend because I was going to. It's right up the road from our apartment. But not the point. They don't look anything like it. So no 2 8-2 teams are created equal. Utah is the example why. That is a 2-loss team that if they get into the playoffs and you are in the playoffs, you do not want to meet up with them. Because I don't know if Utah has what it takes to go win a natty, let's say, with this group, but they can ruin it for someone. And I'm telling you, that team physically is flexing hard. And it was cool watching. They had it on the video board there in the arena at the Huntsman Center. I'm getting ready for the basketball game. And Sam Houston's basketball team comes out dribbling, and the place starts cheering and roaring. And the band was cheering, the band members that were there. And the Sam Houston group was like, oh, that was nice of them. And I'm like, no, look at the video. Yeah, Bird Ficklin's gone for a touchdown.
There's not an ovation for Sam Houston.
But the timing was so perfect.
That's funny.
Not the point, though. You look at what happens right now. You want to be playing your very best football at all times, obviously, but especially now. And Utah is as physical as any team in the Big 12. And they're, other than Texas Tech, I think, playing at as good a level as anybody in that conference.
Yeah, I can't really argue with any of that. The real bummer is this, Tony. And look, 2004 Utah, 2008 Utah, two teams that we kind of hold, almost in reverence because they were undefeated teams. It shows that you play in a flawed sport if you can win every game on your schedule and not hang a banner. It's just a weird deal. I always talk about 2019 as potentially the best team on paper with all of those pros and everything they had in front of them before kind of stumbling down the stretch. There's the Rose Bowl teams, the Pac-12 championship teams in 2022, 2023. Part of me is starting to believe that this team should be considered, as far as where they're at right now and how dominant they've been offensively, as good as almost anything that we've seen here. But I think the permeating fear in the community is it might not matter. Like there's no way for them to prove that because they don't need a little help, Tony. They actually need a lot of help.
Right.
Okay. I think what a lot of people don't necessarily, because I've heard a lot of people that don't necessarily understand the scenario say, well, if Cincinnati beats BYU, Utah is in if they handle their business. Here's the reality, okay? Number one, Utah has to win their final 2 games, okay? And this is only for the Big 12 championship opportunity, so we'll stick in this space for a moment. Number one is Utah has to win their final 2 games. Number 2 is Cincinnati has to beat BYU, or UCF pulls off a miracle in Provo, which I don't think is going to happen. BYU has to lose one more time. But here's the other thing. So does Arizona State, okay? Because here's what's happened. Cincinnati losing Arizona knocks Utah's win over Cincinnati down a peg or 2. Arizona State has the win against Texas Tech without Baron Morton, but they still beat them. So in the tiebreaker scenario, even if Cincinnati beats BYU, if Arizona State wins out and Utah wins out, and we have Arizona State, Utah, and BYU as 2 lost teams, guess who gets in? It's Arizona State. It's not Utah. So unfortunately, they need a lot of help to get to Arlington. Here's the best path. And according to the college football predictor on ESPN.com, and take it for what it's worth, if Utah wins their final 2 games, and ultimately they're going to have to do to Kansas State and Kansas what they've done over the past 3 weeks, and that is not just win. You have to stomp them. A 14-10 win over K-State does nothing for you. And BYU wins out, which I believe they're going to do. And then BYU goes to Arlington, and they get their heads kicked in by Texas Tech a second straight time. According to the ESPN playoff predictor, there's still a 50% chance Utah gets in the back doors and at large. Yeah. I think that's probably the best opportunity.
Yeah, at large is really the path, because when you start getting into the help and you're getting into the 5th and 6th element of it, the likelihood is just too low. It's going to have to be an at-large thing. Control what you can control, and obviously you hope for the help that happens around that with other things that are happening in other conferences. You hope your conference can get the kind of respect that they deserve. And to your point, finish with an exclamation point here. Really make it as good a case as you can make it, and your 2 losses happen to be to a Texas Tech team that I think has the capability of winning the national title. They wouldn't be my pick, but I actually think they're capable of it with how strong they are overall. And your other loss was to BYU, which is obviously a pretty solid team that could end up finishing out with just 1 loss in the regular season. So this entire time, Spence, I'm looking at it and I'm going, man, that is – how often did we see really good teams left out of the 4 team? And you're going to occasionally see really good teams left out of the 12. And it used to be that you would hopefully get into a what would be a New Year's 6 bowl game, which was a consolation game, and you could finish with a win and be proud of it. But it's a different thing now. And this team here is playing like a playoff caliber team, hands down. But it's an SAT, and it's a full season thing, and we'll see how it shakes out. But I'm with you. It's going to be a really, really tough road for them to break through.
Yeah, and it's why, because you could kind of start to see, I mean, look, I don't know that UCLA was a super awesome litmus test, but regardless, right away, offensively, you could tell that all the buzz about Jason as a play caller, the offensive line being not just the best in the Big 12, one of the top couple in the country, according to PFF, the best run-blocking offensive line in college football, period. You kind of could see it a little bit, and then the Tech loss happens, that stings. But anytime they've played an opponent that isn't necessarily top shelf, the other team doesn't look like they should be on the field with Utah. No. So you could start to see some things kind of taking place offensively, and we always say this with Witt, like they're always a really good offense away from competing for conference championships because we know what the defense is going to be with Kyle and Morgan. But after the BYU loss, that week on this show, I said, look, this one is going to sting in a way that just a normal loss to your rival is not going to sting, because it didn't change my mind about how good Utah was. And it wasn't really a testament to how good BYU is. That was a weird football game where we know the deal. We've been over it. We don't need to relitigate the 4th down decisions. We don't need to relitigate turnovers here or there. BYU gets the win, period, end of story. Credit them, and they have handled their business, and we'll get to them in a moment. But the reason why I kind of leaned into the whole, like, no, this is not just a regular loss to BYU, is in my heart, I felt like that's your second conference loss. Looking at who Tech is, looking at what BYU has in front of you, it is going to be really hard for you to get back to where you need to be to show America that you are, to your point, a college football playoff caliber team, because the pathway got murky. I think we're always going to look back on 2025 loss in Provo as something that stings a lot more than just a regular loss to your rival.
And it's really tough because if they go 10-2, you would hate to look at that negatively. You'd hate to. But that is part of the story that would have to be told. I mean, the part of the story has to be told that at your best, you were undoubtedly a playoff caliber team. You were boat racing teams. You embarrassed Cincinnati. At your best, that's who you were. And then you go back into the microscope, and this is just one of those things you would have to teach in the game of football. When you miss a key block on that 4th and 1, you don't even get in the way. You didn't just miss the block. You just didn't even touch him.
Mm-hmm.
When the going for it on 4th and 7 at the 28, and I know Ute fans hate to hear all this, and I think they're right there with me. It's not just that you lost the game to the rival, but that made the difference between who got in and who did not.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is something that is tough because here, and I hope this doesn't happen, but I think it will just because it's the nature of the business. When Bronco Mendenhall had some 10-win teams that were really good, I felt like BYU fans didn't appreciate it because part of those 10-win seasons were including a loss to Utah. And then Utah obviously had the Sugar Bowl here. So fans, I thought it wasn't that they were just spoiled, it's just that they didn't feel like it was as appreciated as it could be, right? And this is a Utah team that, man, at their best, they were exceptional. And if they go 10-2 and don't get into the postseason, I hope fans would still look at the program and go, what a huge jump forward compared to last season. Remember how concerned we might have been about what this era is and can they function in this era at an optimal level? They did. They just happened to lose the wrong games, have the wrong plays at the wrong times in a 10-2 season.
Yeah, and look, there are very few coaches in conference where if you went to them preseason and said, look, you get 10-2, sign right now. Will you take it? 10-2 is an excellent year.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is the losses, the Tech, BYU, they have 2 wins over bowl-eligible teams. And the Cincinnati win after their loss to Arizona, all due respect to Arizona, who I think is 7-3.
Yeah,
and they're 5-2.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, 4-3 in conference, 7-3 overall. Utah's best win is Cincinnati. That doesn't look great. The Arizona State win, maybe at the end of the year will look a little bit better. But 2 wins over bowl-eligible teams when you've played a team that is not near as talented as you have boat raced them. But when the challenges have been, with the 2 best teams in the conference, you didn't meet the moment. And unfortunately, the punitive nature of losses in this sport, it's a really weird way that we crown a national champion based off of certain different pieces of criteria, including the dynamic that BYU's head-to-head win over Utah. If this whole scenario unfolds, if BYU goes back to the Big 12, if they go to the Big 12 championship game, if they win their final 2 games, which I think they're going to do, by the way, they made a statement on Saturday against a good TCU team.
They look great.
TCU was in the top 25 according to PFF's grade. The Vegas line was 3. TCU was the second best run defense in the conference. BYU humiliated them. And I don't think Cincinnati has anything close up front to stop BYU's run game. We saw Cincinnati here in Salt Lake. Utah toyed with them. But if BYU goes to the Big 12 championship game, and if they get their heads kicked in by Tech again, and Utah wins their final 2 games in style, and Utah gets into the CFP and BYU's left out, I would understand if I'm a BYU fan, like, wait a second, we beat those guys. It's just kind of a weird thing that we do in this sport to grant access for people to have an opportunity to actually hang a banner, which is what we all want to do.
I, as a voter, really hated when I had to rank and evaluate a team that had an extra game and then would lose. And then I'm supposed to penalize them more than the team that didn't have the extra game. That drove me nuts. Absolutely drove me nuts. The other thing about it, too, is when you evaluate, and people would be like, I hate hearing eyeball test. Well, no, it was part of it. Quality of play and how you play is everything. There were plenty of times where someone would say, well, how did you put this team over this team? Because they beat these guys. And I'm like, you have to watch them play. Utah's one of those. If you're not watching them play, you will not understand just how great they've been. Because to your point, the scoreboard is one thing. If you watch how they are physically manhandling teams, if you watch how they are demoralizing opponents when you start making that 2019-ish sort of, they have some of that flavor. They've got some of that flavor. To the Mountain West comparison of that 04-ish type thing, they're winning a few of those games in that same way where it feels like when, not if, that Utah is just going to hit them with a Pez dispensing uppercut and just drop them to their knees, dude. It feels like that at any given play. I mean, I'm sitting there getting ready for the basketball game, and I'm glancing up, and there goes Ficklin.
Yeah.
You know, there all of a sudden you glance up, oh, there goes Parker, and you're going, man, that's 42-20 now? Like, you just feel that coming on. And by the way, awesome with the way BYU's playing right now, too. So it's tough because there's 12. That's the number I like best, by the way. And you got to cut off somewhere. And if Utah ends up being that best team left out, it's unfortunate. But at some point, it would have to be cut. And the games were there for the opportunity to win your way in. So
you can expand it to 22, and then we'll just argue over who 23, 24, 25 is. You know,
I really don't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, the good news is this, okay? So we'll look at this from a glass half full perspective if you're a Utah football fan. And we go over these metrics every week, and BYU fans don't like it, but these are just the numbers, okay? And these are rankings and advanced metrics that the committee themselves has told us we're utilizing. All right, so S&P Plus, that's the Bill Conley system. Right now, he has Texas Tech as the third best team in the country, which I like. I feel like Tech is a little undervalued, and maybe I'm biased because I watched them on the sideline here, undress Utah in the fourth, and then just take it to BYU. But Utah right now is at 8. That's even ahead of Texas A&M. They slid after nearly getting got by Carolina. BYU's at 17. They're 9-1, but S&P Plus has them at 17. College Football Power Index. I know there's a lot of noise in this metric. They actually have Utah continue to be their highest favored team in the Big 12. They have Utah right now at 7, Texas Tech at 8, then BYU at 14. So if I put a BYU fan hat on, I continue to feel a little bit disrespected. If I put a BYU fan hat on and I realize that the pathway ahead could include me being left out and Utah being put in, even though I have the head-to-head, I'm upset. If I put my Ute fan hat on, there's still a legitimate pathway forward for this team to qualify for the stage that is the only stage that will allow them to prove whether or not what you and I are saying is true. We're not going to learn anything about they're a 17-point favorite against K-State. And I think they go to Kansas after Thanksgiving. I think they smoke them. This is a run game right now, to your point. Creativity, play calling with Jason, disguising who has the football. The offensive line, dude, I've mentioned the stat like 10 times because I laughed at it when I saw it last week. And after the Baylor game, Utah is averaging 3.4 yards per carry before contact. Before contact, 3.4 yards. So if you're Devin, if you're Wayshawn, if you're Bird, if you're Nakari, you're running for almost 3.5 yards before anybody gets a fingernail on you. But, Tony, the only chance that we're going to have to accurately measure this team against legitimate competition is if they qualify for the college football playoff. Otherwise, we're going to put this team with 2019 as what could have been. And that kind of sucks.
It does because, and it's really tough too when we're doing voting and stuff like that. I used to have to tell people, like, when I vote, I'm not voting as a predictive exercise.
Right. You can't do that.
So I look at Utah right now and say, if you said, okay, who would be more likely to compete better, play at a higher level, blah, 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 which 12 teams, they'd be one of the 12, and I wouldn't even think about it. That, hands down. But if you make me measure on what they have done, not what they would do if they got in, and it goes to the situation you're talking about, unless they had some things fall their way for an at-large to happen, it's quite possible they'll be on the outside looking. And as frustrating as it would be, no doubt about it, all of it. And to your other thing on that with BYU, yes, if they were to go to the Big 12 championship game and lose and then have the tiebreaker and not get in and your rival does, no, that would be an injustice. As much as I love the way Utah is playing and I would like both teams to be in, but if you said, okay, only one of them, that's it, got to make a pick. No, it would be the team that won in the game head-to-head, not the team that I thought outplayed the other for more of the game. That's not how it's measured. It's measured on a final score. And that's just the absolute truth of it. So Yeah, you can feel the heartbreak coming, and I hope it doesn't happen. For Utah, I hope they find their way in because they are playing like a playoff team.
Yeah, and
undoubtedly.
The metrics like Utah, and the committee continues to tell us that they are using all of these metrics because what they want is the teams that are playing their best football this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
It's why the 2 Notre Dame losses, again, to Texas A&M and Miami, 2 very good football teams, but it's why the 2 Notre Dame losses are not necessarily being viewed as punitive because they were the first 2 games of the year, and they've ran off 7 straight wins since then.
Yeah,
smoking Pitt, which is a top 25 team on the road. But I could make an argument for both BYU and Utah. Certainly BYU is a 1-loss team to be ahead of Notre Dame because BYU's 1 loss is to Texas Tech, who I think is a top 3 or 4 program in the country.
They're good, man.
But I would just wonder, if you had to put and look, from a sports talk radio host standpoint, I should say, Mark Harlan being in that room now adds such a juicy angle here, because what BYU fans are thinking after Mark was tabbed to be on the CFP after the Baylor dude got loose. But I just wonder what the conversation in the room sounds like. Let's say BYU barely gets by Cincinnati. Let's say they're going to beat UCF. But if the Big 12 championship game takes place with BYU and Texas Tech, and Tech wins 42-10, and Utah smashes K-State 54-13, and they go to Kansas and they win 48-10. What does that conversation sound like in the room? Does the Big 12 get another team in, and is that team Utah, even though they lost to BYU head-to-head? Because I cannot refute your point. If we are not heavily leaning into the actual game that was played, what are we doing here? And that's where I kind of side with the BYU sentiment here, where it's just dude, if we can't get credit for winning the game, which is the name of the game, no matter how it happens, no matter how ugly it is. Bottom line, if we can't get credit, I'll give you the final word here. What exactly are we doing? I understand the sentiment.
No, and it should be the sentiment because, look, I used to have to do this too. People would be so I'd have a team, let's say you have two lost teams, and I'd have one ahead of the other. And people would be so head-to-head doesn't matter? Doesn't mean anything? It's hang on. If you've got a head-to-head where one team beat another 17-16, and they're both 2 lost teams, but the 2 losses for the team that won the head-to-head were against, let's say, bad teams, right? Let's say BYU's losses were to UCF, and then they suffered a 49-0 loss to Tech. Let's say that's where it was right now. I, at this moment, would actually give Utah the edge there. But that's not the truth right now.
Right.
Right now, they're a very good, and you could say that they had bounces go their way. I'm not denying that. But they look great on Saturday. They've had some dominant wins to go with it. And if they were to go to the Big 12 championship game and lose and be a 2-loss team, and you say you have to pick one of these 2 teams, and these are the only, this is it. This is where the cutoff is, right here. If you make me do it, I have no choice. Because if they're going to stick to their protocols on this, and they're going to put the emphasis on that, then fine. But what I didn't like about the previous era was they would say, "Oh no, this is what we're emphasizing. We're prioritizing this," and then they'd get a little wee-wah, woo-wah with some of the stuff.
A lot of moving targets.
And it's well, wait a second. Now you're getting too flexible here. So if you stick to it, then that's what it is. But if you get shaky with it, then I think a bigger injustice would be the winner of the head-to-head to be kept out when their 2 losses are to the team that won the conference and the team that has a shot at winning the Natty.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just it.
That's tough, man.
But if you said, no, that's it, we're changing the whole thing, it's all based on predict who will have more success in the thing. Well, then I might end up picking Utah.
Yeah,
right?
it's wild.
So anyway.
Well, good to see you, man. Thanks for the time, okay?
You too. Don't forget, go to the ballpark. Holiday Lights. You were mentioning America First Credit Union.
Indeed.
$12 tickets for that. In Chicago, they have these great pop-ups everywhere where you have these great opportunities to get family photos, great family-friendly activities. We have that at the ballpark at America First Square. Family-friendly pricing, family-friendly environment, free parking, great holiday lights experiences, light shows every 15 minutes. Kids are going to love it. The whole family's going to love it. Join us at any time of the holidays, but especially Mondays for $12 tickets.
You're the man. Tony Parks will catch a break. 5 o'clock hours next. ESPN 700. All righty, 5 o'clock hour of the program starts right now. A little late, misbehaved on the clock. Had a fun little college football conversation with our guy, Tony Parks. Monday Night Football tonight. We'll wrap up Week 12 of the Pro Football Weekend. It is the Cowboys and the Raiders from Vegas. Jamar Chase has been suspended for one game as a result of the spitting situation on Jalen Ramsey over the weekend. So some bad news if you're a Bengals fan. Little NFL football tonight. We've got some Mammoth hockey this evening. They're taking on Anaheim. Utah Jazz with the night off tonight. They're going to be back in action tomorrow against the LA Lakers. LeBron James has not played yet this year, but there is some word coming out of Los Angeles that he practiced today with the team for the first time. So maybe we will see LeBron James playing for the Lakers against the Jazz coming up tomorrow night. Of course, most of the conversation today has been about the college football weekend where both Utah and BYU very much handled business. Both games kind of fell over at halftime. The Utah-Baylor game got a little dicey. Didn't look like Utah was ever in trouble letting that one get away. And BYU just thumped TCU in Provo on Saturday night. Man, there's something they've got going Saturday night at LaVell Edwards Stadium. BYU is tough down there Saturday night. So Utah gets the win over Baylor 55-28. It was another dominant ground attack. This is the second best rushing team in America and the best rushing offense in the Big 12. The line was 10.5. Utah more than doubled that. The BYU line was 3. They ended up winning by 31, so both teams win. Both teams move up in the AP. BYU finds themselves now at number 11, and Utah crawls up to number 13. Of course, the only rankings that matter are the college football playoff rankings, which will come your way coming up tomorrow night. So with Texas losing, they're probably going to slide. My guess is both BYU and Utah creep up one spot, but we'll know tomorrow night. So there you go. All right, let's bring in Scott Mitchell. We're going to break down the game that we just saw. We'll look ahead to Kansas State. Don't forget that is a 2 o'clock kick time on Saturday. Got to love that window. Porter will get rolling with pregame coverage starting at 10 a.m. We'll have 10 hours of game day coverage. Hard to believe, but this is the final home game for Utah football this year. Is it the final home game for Coach Witt? Scott Mitchell answers all those questions coming up on the other side of a quick break right here on ESPN 700. You know, I understand we went with Metallica when the Franklin rumor was floated out there. James Franklin might be taking the Va Tech job. We could have ended the show on a less angry note tonight, though.
Yeah, I know. Is it angry or is it just waking you up on a Monday?
Fair enough. All right. We're going to do the Alex Jensen Coaches Show coming up, then Monday Night Football in progress. Porter, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you my prize picks lineup, and I just want your instant reaction, okay?
I'm ready for it.
Number 1, Dak Prescott more than 256 passing yards.
No problem.
Number 2, CeeDee Lamb scores a touchdown.
Maybe.
Number 3, Jake Ferguson catches a touchdown.
Okay. Is this a parlay?
Yeah. I'm going big time tonight, okay? Number 4, Ashton Genty scores a touchdown.
Okay. So you got 3 separate player prop touchdowns.
Oh, this is risky. Look, if you want to win some cash, you got to take some risks. Geno Smith, less than 231 passing yards.
Okay, I like that. He's not been good.
Tyler Lockett, more than 27.5 passing yards. That's my 16 parlay.
I'm with it. I don't think you're going to win, though. Sorry.
Thank you for the confidence. That's a $20 bet on a 16 power play that pays out $650.
Good value.
Yeah.
Good value there if you feel confident about it.
So go to Prize Picks, download the Prize Picks app, use that promo code ESPN700, and you are going to get $50 when you play that first $5 lineup. On Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Hopefully I am. If you follow me on the app and you decide to mirror my picks and we lose, do not DM me saying that you're angry, okay? This is at your discretion. All right, Porter, Alex Jensen Coaches Show coming up on the other side. We'll get to know the progress these youths are making, what comes our way on a Tuesday edition of the show.
On a Tuesday, we're going to chat with our friend Chris Kamrani. He'll be in studio for an entire hour. Our guy Dave Fox will stop by. I believe we'll have some NBA Daily Assist with our guy Tim McMahon, but we'll go from there, of course, on a Monday this time around, as you mentioned, Alex Jensen Coaches Show, and on a Tuesday after we get done, the Kyle Whittingham Coaches Show.
There you go. So a lot of good info coming your way. We will say goodnight. Special thank you today to Scott Mitchell. Definitely Stevenson Sylvester. If you missed his description of dunking on Greg Oden, you're going to want to go listen to that. Played you a little Coach Witt and our guy Tony Parks live in the studio. If you missed any of the sound from the program today, you can go to the website, which is ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us on the go. That ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. Then for what we do in our space, 4 hours every afternoon, check out our podcast page and become a supporter by following along, rating, reviewing, saying nice things in the comments, and giving us all the stars. It helps. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Bill Riley, Alex Jensen coming your way, coming up after a quick break right here on ESPN 700.